Hello and welcome to Beyond Boundaries. My name is Justin Douglas. So pumped to have you with me today on this episode of Beyond Boundaries. If you want to learn more about me or find the show notes for this episode, you can go to pastorjustindouglas.com. You can interact there with feedback, comments, and questions, or you can reach out to me via Instagram. I'm at Pastor Justin Douglas. Also, please consider subscribing, rating, reviewing, and sharing this podcast. It really does make a difference. On this episode of Beyond Boundaries, I sit down with Jared Meyers, and we talk through his story. It is a pretty intense and incredible story. Jared is a coach at Crossfit Gamma, where I personally go for CrossFit, so I've got to know him over the last few years. He has also started his own personal training and nutrition coaching business, Life Hershey LLC. One of the values of this podcast is that we get beyond boundaries with people where they are vulnerable and honest about their story. Jared does that in this conversation, and one of the things that I'm committed to is not censoring anyone who joins me on this podcast. If they're willing to go beyond boundaries, if they're willing to be vulnerable, then I'm not going to censor anything they say. With that said, you might have noticed that this is the first episode with an explicit rating. I just wanted to share that with you, as some of you might listen along with your kiddos in the minivan while you're running errands. Maybe this is one for the headphones, or maybe not. I'll leave that up to you, but I just wanted to make you aware of that. Ultimately, this is a heartbreaking, inspiring, and necessary story. I'm so thankful Jared took some time to share his experience with us. So here it is, my conversation with Jared Meyers. Jared, what's up, man? How you doing?
Pretty good. How are you, brother?
I'm doing well. I'm excited for this. Why don't you tell people a little bit about yourself? Give them just like a brief overview of who you are, what you're about, what you're doing.
Brief overview or like my whole history?
Let's start with just where you are right now.
So
and then we'll do your whole history, because I'm looking forward to your whole history, man, because I feel like I've had conversations with you where it's been like a couple minutes of your history, and it's very interesting, and I love that we're going to sit down and chat about it for an extended period of time. So
yeah, I mean, we actually don't know anything about each other.
Yeah. We don't know a whole lot about each other. This is going to be good. But like, why don't you tell people like where you are today, like who you are, what you're about, if they want to meet you and just kind of see you and get to know you a little bit. Yeah,
so I'm a personal trainer by trade. I started at the beginning of last year, my own business. I've been doing personal training all year. I'm an athlete and a coach at CrossFit Gamma. That's kind of my main hub. And I do some in-home training and stuff too. So as far as a career, I'm a personal trainer. My hobby is an athlete, and I pretty much just do fitness all the time now.
True. And you're married to Cher?
I have a lovely wife and a dog. My wife is Sherilyn, and my dog is Scooter. So that's my family.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. So I don't even know where to start with your story, but I'm looking forward to kind of diving in. Were you born around here in PA?
I was, yep. I grew up in Palmyra. I was
Okay.
born in Lebanon, but I grew up my whole life in Palmyra. I went to Palmyra School District. Pretty standard childhood. I mean, my parents are still together. I grew up in a loving household. Pretty standard stuff. I feel like that's actually abnormal nowadays, but I don't know where my story went off the tracks. So I played baseball growing up, but I wasn't really an athlete. I tried all the sports. I got cut from basketball in 7th grade, so I wasn't always athletic. I wasn't always skilled like in that area. I would say I was skilled, but I wasn't dedicated. I didn't have it. I didn't practice. I didn't, have any drive. I played piano. I took piano lessons. I picked up guitar at like 15. But I didn't latch on to anything. I didn't have a drive. I didn't have a desire. I didn't have passion until much later in life. So looking back, I can see that was the problem. But in the moment, it was very stressful, and, growing up, I was like, oh, well, I'm just depressed, or I'm broken, or, whatever those feelings of insecurities are.
Yeah.
I attribute it now to not having passion and a focus in my life. My parents tried. I mean, they, got me in sports, and they got me in music, and we went to church, and I played in the church band, and I did all the things that should spark passion and desire, and I just didn't connect.
Yeah.
So, I was 16. My parents were foster parents also, so they adopted a sister when I was 5. We're actually the same age. So she she was my sister growing up. We had foster siblings, people coming in and out of the house. My parents were just loving people. They just wanted to help.
That's awesome.
And I think, I get some of that from them. So when I was 16, they fostered my cousins who were in a pretty bad situation. They were getting kicked out of a trailer home, I believe, because it was uninhabitable. So my parents adopted them and brought them on board. And I remember sitting down with them, and they're like, this is going to be difficult. Are you strong enough to bring them up and help them? Like, they sat us down and like, they have lived a rough, couple of years here. You're going to have to inspire them and be strong to help them. So
how old were you at this time?
I was like 15 or 16.
Okay.
Yeah.
How old were they?
My cousin Travis was 15, and my cousin Katie was 14 or 13.
Okay.
So she's 2 years younger, and he's 1 year younger.
So they're all right around high school age-ish, high school.
Yeah. So we're all like high school. I think I was a sophomore, junior, maybe in between. Katie was a freshman. Travis was sophomore. I was a junior. So we were all like right in that age range. I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah.
So they moved in, and they were quiet and reserved, and Katie really latched on to my mom, but Travis didn't. About 3 or 4 months after they moved in, I got my wisdom teeth out and took my whole prescription of Vicodin in like 2 days. I was like, this is fun. This feels good. I like how I feel when I take this. Wow. So I was like joking with my cousin about it, and he's like, oh, you like that? And then he pulled out he handed me one half of an Oxy, a little blue pill, and he's like, here, take this. And I took it, and I was like, wow, this is even better. I feel great. And I knew it was wrong, but I didn't know how wrong it was going to be. I mean, I was just young and having fun. He had a whole bag of like 100 of them. He had like 100 Oxys on him, and I didn't know what I was looking at. I was like, oh, it's just some pills. But in hindsight, like, that's like $200, $2,000 worth of pills, 100 pills at $20 a piece. Like, that street value is like an expensive bit of property there at 15 years old. And I didn't even know what I was getting into. Like, he was getting them for free, from his mom, and I didn't know that was the situation until 2-3 weeks later, till I was addicted, and I didn't know what I was doing. I mean, I knew it was wrong. Like, I always say, like, I knew what I was doing was wrong. Yeah. But I liked the feeling more than I cared that it was wrong. So my values just were in having fun and feeling good and feeling a part of something. And I felt a part of that. We developed a really strong friendship. We did a lot of things together. I got my driver's license. We were, driving around at 16, just taking pills and just running amok.
Had you done any drugs before that?
No, that was the first time.
It was the first time.
Yeah.
So, wow. I know a student who had back surgery, 14 or 15 years old, had back surgery, got prescribed pain medication, has been addicted to drugs ever since. Yeah. And we're talking like in his mid-20s now. Yeah. Like, and it's just so sad, like, to see like how that can be such a gateway to, like, I mean, I'm glad it seems like there's a lot more happening in that community now to kind of monitor,
I think
how
it's
those
better.
It's better, probably.
I think it's better, but
it's sad to see how accessible it was and how so much of that. So you guys are 16, driving around, you got your license.
Yeah, and I mean, he's been doing this for his whole life, right? So we start stealing stuff like very quickly,
to pay for it. Is that why? Is the motivation?
No, like all the drugs were free. We just stole shit for fun.
Yeah. No, I get it. Yeah.
So it was the thrill. I mean, we were just thrill seeking. We were driving fast and smoking cigarettes that we stole, or cigars that we stole. Like, we stole everything that we could. We were buying alcohol from people and drinking before class and taking oxys in class. And it just progressed super fast. And I knew I felt like crap when I didn't have them. But I didn't think I was addicted by any means for the first, 6-8 months. I didn't know what addiction was really. And then I was like deep in it, and I was like, man, I'm sick. Like, I actually need this drug now instead of, it's just fun. So I would say timelines are tough. I mean, it's kind of foggy. I nail it down better in my book because I actually like sat down and went through year by year and what I did each year. But I would say the next year I was a senior, he was a sophomore. I mean, we did the same thing all summer. And then the next year, senior year, I started doing heroin because the pills weren't as plentiful because we needed more of them. It wasn't a long time in between. I would, within 6 months of starting doing oxys, I was doing heroin. And not with my cousin. Now I went and found it on my own.
Wow.
He was very, against that. He had, more access. He didn't want to do heroin. I just fell in with that crowd because I had the oxys, so that occasionally I would give them some. I mean, you just connect with people who are doing the same thing. You just gravitate towards them. So at some point, I started doing heroin, and then that became an expensive habit. So then I had to steal things to support my habit and steal money to support my habit from family, from friends, and my biggest regrets come from that time period of my life, just because some of those people aren't around anymore, and I did them wrong. So that was a hard, forgiveness for me. It was that time in my life when I was stealing from family and friends, and I didn't care about the consequences. I only cared about the high.
Yeah. Yeah, when I talk to people in addiction, in recovery especially, like, who have had a season in addiction, they say how selfish they were, kind of, and how they just had blinders on, as if their addiction was the only thing worth feeding. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. Not the relationships in their life, but just that. And like, and once they come out of that and have perspective looking back, they're like, I can't even reconcile how I would ever do that. But when you're in that space, it just seems so
selfish, like
over.
You said. I mean, it's completely about yourself. At that point in my life, I didn't care about other people's feelings at all, and it's hard to vocalize what that feels like. I felt a void inside of me, right? I felt that when I was on drugs, I was a whole person. Like, I genuinely thought that part of me was missing biologically, and painkillers filled that void. Like, I felt like it connected with me that much that I was my whole self when I was on them. And how crazy, I mean, it's absolutely crazy. Like, that mentality takes over, and then it's you taking care of yourself, trying to fill that void of who am I, what am I? Oh, when I'm on drugs, I'm a happy, positive, popular, I can talk to girls, I can do whatever, and it was fun, and that's what I wanted at that point in my life.
Wow.
Looking back, it takes hard work to be a good, upstanding citizen, and that's kind of the part that I didn't understand. I didn't understand that I had to work on myself, and that I had to address my flaws, and that I had to be okay and celebrate my flaws, because that's who I am.
Yeah.
Rather than cover them up.
Yeah. So you go from pills to heroin within a year, even less than a year. And now you're even more isolated because you're not necessarily doing it with a family member. You're doing it with people who are probably have even less of your interests in mind, would be my guess. Does that make sense? Like,
yeah, they were just using me to get money, because if you buy more, you get a better deal. If you buy $300 worth rather than $50 worth, so they needed a ride. I had a vehicle because I was living with my parents, who were pretty well off, and the people who I was running around with weren't that well off. So I had a vehicle, and we would drive to Lancaster every day, almost every day, and buy $100 worth of heroin almost every day. Wow. Somebody would come up with the money. Somebody would come up with gas money. I'd put $5 in my tank, and we'd drive to Lancaster 90 miles an hour to get heroin. Like, then we'd get high and drive 40 miles an hour back. Like, just that was the daily. Like, it's just ludicrous.
Did your parents confront you in this time at all? Like were they suspicious that Jared's changing? Yeah. Because I would assume this would be hard to hide from them as deep in it as you were.
I convinced him that it was depression or anxiety. I mean, I always had another excuse. At one point, I told him I was bipolar, I think. It was always, it was always a story. It was always, I have to go here with this person. And I was just never home.
Yeah.
Right. And I was sick, or I had a headache, or I was just depressed. So I went and saw a bunch of therapists. And I forget at which point, like, it actually came out that they knew, and I had to tell them. It was probably about a year. I went to rehab after senior year. I think between senior year and college. I'd have to actually look back.
No, that's fine.
It's kind of fuzzy, but one of the summers that I think it was the year after my freshman year of college, I went to my first rehab. So that's about a year and a half of usage. And it wasn't, I mean, it was pretty much straight through something, but it wasn't always heroin. So I would do heroin for a period of time. And then I would go back to pills because the pills would be around. And I didn't want to do heroin. Like, I knew that that wasn't the greatest idea. But I would kind of be off and on of stuff for a long time. And then I went to college. I stopped doing heroin altogether, but I just did everything else. I started smoking weed. I started drinking more. I started doing party drugs and tripping on mushrooms and acid. And, like, it was more of the community of it at that point, the friendship and the adventure and the thrill seeking. Not as much of the self, because I finally had somewhere to fit in. I finally found a crowd that had the same values as me. I just took it to the extreme and used everything like a drug. Like, I just used every possible substance like heroin, basically. I would drink until I was blacked out, or I'd smoke until I couldn't think straight, or I'd take a bunch of pills just to cover up that feeling. Yeah. I was running away from something, myself, my feelings, life. I was getting through school because I had natural, intelligence, I guess, test-taking ability, basically. I was applying myself in college. But I had finally found a community that was accepting of, that type of lifestyle. Now, they knew that I was an addict because they saw I was, stealing weed from people, and I was always calling and trying to get fronted. And I was always, trying, one way or another, just to catch that feeling again and catch that high. So that I meandered through my first couple years, but after my first year of college, I came home and I started doing heroin almost instantly again for that summer. And that's when it really became apparent. My parents knew something was up at that point. I wasn't taking care of myself. I think I always had a job, but I never had money because I spent it all on drugs, and things started going missing because I was selling stuff. I started selling guitars, and it would just became more apparent. Like you said, you can't hide it at that point. Yeah. And as I finally admitted it, and I went to rehab that summer, and that lasted for like 4 or 5 days. My first rehab was like 4 or 5 days. It was supposed to be a 30 or 60 day program, and I think I made it 5 days. Day 2, I just like left. I walked out into the woods and just went for a walk. And then I came back and they put me on walking restriction. I wasn't allowed to walk anywhere. So then at like day 4 or 5, I left again. And this was all because of a girl. I had met a girl that summer. I was in love with her, of course. I was doing drugs. She knew I was doing drugs. And I thought I could win her over by going and getting sober, right?
Okay. I mean, so the motivation was her. The motivation that sent you into rehab was more for her.
The first time, yeah. I mean, that's all I wanted. She played guitar, and she was popular, and she could sing, and we had a connection. And then she found I was doing drugs, and I was like, "Oh, but I'll get better." I mean, the whole. Yeah. It's just a typical story. Yeah. So I was all better. 5 days in, I was like, "I got this. Like, I'm not high anymore. Like, I've been sober for 5 days, and I can go home now, right? Because she's going to leave for college. I'm never going to see her again. I need to woo her off, or whatever. I don't know. I thought.
Sure.
She didn't talk to me when I got home because I was still on drugs. Like, they knew. My mom knew. So I ran off back to school. I was like, well, at school I don't do heroin. So, that was my excuse that time. And so back to school, still smoking weed, still doing, I mean, that was pretty much my whole college experience the first time. Doing those type of drugs at college and then coming home doing heroin, going to rehab. I went to 3 or 4 rehabs over the course of 4 or 5 years. I mean, it was off and on and off and on, and I just, stole, schemed, lied my way to get more drugs all the time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you graduate college, or did you
Not
end up
the
having
first
to drop
time.
out? Okay.
Yeah, I had to go back and finish it. I was a biology major. I loved science. I thought I was going to work in a hospital or, something, cure diseases, and I really loved biology. I loved it. I'm still intrigued by it, but I was 4 years in. I was technically still a junior, so I wasn't going to graduate in 4 or maybe even 5 years. I failed some classes. I could have graduated in 5 years, but my head wasn't on straight. I withdrew in I would say it was my first semester of my 4th year, which is supposed to be my senior year. It was just falling apart. I was just doing more and more. I had stayed up at school that summer and worked at Wendy's for the whole summer, so I tried to stay away from the heroin, and it just didn't get better. I just smoked more weed. I just didn't do anything positive. I was just still kind of doing party drugs on the weekends and drinking all the time. My buddy had a prescription to Adderall, and I would go steal his whole prescription and take it in I was a mess. I was an absolute disaster of a friend. I would steal shit from my roommate. He was it was just one thing after another. So that 4th year, it fell apart. I was failing classes, and people were starting to talk about me negatively because it was becoming apparent that I was not a good person. Yeah. My friends were starting to shun me, and that hurt a lot. I mean, there were some things said and things that I heard. I just couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't live the lie. I couldn't, keep up that persona of the cool kid who was doing drugs and, doing college at the same time. I couldn't be the smart hippie. That was who I wanted to be. That's who I thought I was. Yeah. And I called my mom. I was like, look, I'm going to withdraw. And she's like, well, try to talk me out of it. But eventually I just went and saw the dean, and I was like, look, I'm going to withdraw. And that was, one of the hardest days of my life because I knew what was coming. I knew it was going to get worse before it got better. I knew that when I went home, what I was going to find. And it was scary.
What do you mean by that? You knew when you went home you were going to go back to heroin?
Yeah.
Yeah. Was that just because your connections at home, maybe the friends who didn't go to college were there, and that was going to be the first place you found community? Is that kind of what?
Yeah, no, definitely partially the people, but mostly because I had failed. I had given up. I didn't achieve anything. I was tucking my tail and running home. So now I had zero self-esteem back in the same town where I knew what I was getting into. Which
pushes you further into your addiction because you have less self-worth. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, so that was one of the hardest points in my life. So I'm going to put my jacket on.
No, you're fine. It's kind of cold in here.
But ultimately, I mean, I went home and I started working again, but it never got better, right? I mean, I was in therapy. I think I was talking to someone, but I was just lying to them and I was just lying to myself, and it was just a matter of time. I was working 2 jobs and getting drunk all the time. I was going to work high, and it just wasn't going to work out. And eventually I was like, look, Ma, I need to go to rehab again. And they sent me to Reading. So that was my last rehab. I went to Reading 30 days, and then I went to a halfway house. So this time it was going to be different. I was going to stay in a different area. I was going to rehab, halfway house where I was accountable. I was going to get drug tested for the next 6 months. I honestly thought I was going to do it the right way. And that lasted about 3 days until I met a girl in the recovery house. So it was a big 120-room recovery house, separated, men on the right, women on the left. It was like a big dorm, right? Yeah. It was just like being in a dorm. Everyone had their separate room, and it was a wonderful place that's helped a lot of people, but I just wasn't ready. It was 30 days sober, and I met this hot girl, and she was doing Suboxone, which is detox drug. Do you know anything about it?
No, tell me about it.
Suboxone's like, it's an opioid blocker. So if you're on heroin and you take Suboxone to get off of it, you won't get high on the heroin anymore. And if you're doing that many opiates, you're not going to get high on the Suboxone either. It just is like a maintenance drug.
Okay.
And then you're supposed to taper off of it. Well, if you're sober and you take it, it's gonna mess you up, right? Because it still has those properties, but if you're addicted, you don't feel that. All it does is block all of the receptors,
Gotcha.
and you can't use heroin anymore. It's kind of like the alcohol block. They have an alcohol blocker too. It's like that. But as a sober guy, like, it's going to mess you up, and you're going to be high for like 12 hours because it's a really long-lasting drug. But anyway, so I thought you can't test for it. It's not easily tested for like heroin. It's a more expensive test. So this is what people do in recovery or when they're on parole, or they'll do these type of drugs because they're not as testable. So, yeah, of course, I wanted to hang out with this girl. And you're allowed to have a girlfriend, but not a girlfriend from the program. Like, not a girlfriend that's living in the same recovery house. So we were sneaking around. We would sneak off in the woods, and, you know, we went to meetings together. Like, we thought we were getting sober, but we didn't know. And about 2-3 weeks, and maybe not even, somebody saw us kissing outside of a meeting, and they kicked us both out. So now I'm about 37 days sober, and in Redding, which is a pretty heavy drug area. She's from Redding. This is where she's been using her whole life. So her and I get high the first night. We're like, screw it. If you know, they're going to kick us out and not let us get sober, then we're just going to go on a run. So her and I started doing heroin in Redding. She had, you know, the system down. She knew. We started stealing stuff from Walmart and returning it and selling gift cards to this guy she knew who would buy them from us. And we would steal from Lowe's and Home Depot and all the stores.
Oh, wow.
And just sell the gift cards to this guy who ran a restaurant. He would use them, and he'd pay us for them. We went and got food stamps, and we would sell the food stamps to this other guy who ran a restaurant, right? And we'd get cash for him, and then we'd just go buy drugs. We would, you know, do stuff for dealers. We would steal shit that dealers wanted and then give it to them, and they'd give us drugs. Like, we just found a way.
She had a lot of
every day to get high.
Area,
she knew all the dealers already. She knew all the people. She could get shit fronted to her because she's been doing it a while. She's a pretty girl. Like, it was a great situation.
For an addict,
really great, great. So, I mean, the couple months that lasted, we lived in a motel for 3 weeks, and we just existed. We just did heroin. We didn't eat too much. We stole everything we needed, and we just went on a run together. And we thought we would get sober eventually, but I knew that we weren't getting sober in that situation. No, we didn't want to get sober. So, about...
How old are you at this time? Like 22, 23?
22, yeah. So then from there, we got a house. We actually did get a little loft apartment, a room in a house. I got a job at a paper factory, which made junk mail. And I was still just getting high. I got a couple paychecks there before, you know, that money ran out. And then I woke up one day, and both the tires on my car were flat. So this is... I don't know, 2 months into our relationship maybe, and we needed, you know, about $500 to get tires for my car, drugs for the day, and get to work and keep moving on this train. We probably had some bills to pay or something, so like 500 was our number, and we couldn't easily steal that much stuff, so we're like, well, I looked at her, and she's like, well, I'm just going to go rob the bodega. And I was like, you're not going to go rob the bodega. You're going to get shot. Like, the bodega is like the corner store, like, in the hood. Like, you don't go to that store, like, expecting to rob them for money.
Sure.
They're going to shoot you. She's like, well, your tires are flat. And I was like, well, I can probably pump one of them up and put a donut on. And I had nodded off and curbed my car the night before. I didn't really remember it, but I remembered changing the tire, and it just was a mess. So I was like, well, let's just try and drive it. Even if it's on flats, like, we'll just drive it and fix it later. So we go out with the intention to rob a store. And
had you ever done that before?
No, this was the first time.
You hadn't done anything on this
robberies.
level.
Yeah,
it was more
mostly
like
just a thief.
Okay.
Yeah, stealing from stores and people, individuals. So we got a BB gun from Walmart. We stole a BB gun from Walmart and a hat, and then we went driving looking for a store. The first couple stores were too busy, or they had cashiers that were strong looking. It took a while till we found like an empty Turkey Hill with like a little kid working the register. And I went in and got a drink. I got a lemonade, and I put $1 on the table, and I said, "Hey, give me all the money." And I showed him the gun, and he freaked out and threw his hands up, and I was like, "Put your hands down." And he was like in shock, and he put his hands down. I was like, "Open the register," and he's like, "I can't open the register." I was like, "Use this $1 to open the register." So he punched a couple buttons, and then he put his hands up again, and I was like, "Put your hands down," because there were people at the pumps. I was like, "Put your hands down, put the money on the table," like just like had to walk him through the whole thing. And I grabbed a wad of money and I left. And then we drove away, and we're like, "Sweet, we did it. Like, let's go do it again." And she's like, I know this other store. So we drove, and I got lost in the woods because I wasn't from this part of town. She wasn't from this part of town. And then, I don't know, 5 or 10 minutes go by, and I'm like, I don't know where we are. So we're lost in the woods, and she's like, "Oh, I know this road. Make a left." So I make a left. And I'm driving. I'm like, "This looks familiar. Is this the road we were just on with the Turkey Hill?" And she's like, "Yeah, I think so, but it'll be okay. Just keep driving." So, like, as soon as I said that, I saw the Turkey Hill coming up, and I was like, "Oh, shit." Like, there's a boatload of cop cars.
Yeah.
All flashing lights. It's all lit up. Like, I just kept driving because that's what she said to do. Like, I just, like, put all my faith in this girl. Like, I loved her. Like, she was crazy. She was wild. She was fun. She was an addict, and she wasn't happy, and I didn't know what happiness was, but I was in love with her. Like, we had a serious connection doing that stuff. So I just kept driving. She's like, "It'll be okay." I was like, "It'll be okay." I just kept driving. We got like 2 yards past the Turkey Hill, and there were lights behind us. Pulled us out of the car, cuffed us. They were looking for the money. And it was scary as shit. I knew I was going to jail. Like, you just knew it.
Yeah, pretty sobering at that moment, I would assume, right?
Yeah, and I'm writing about it in my book. I'm about 3/4 of the way through my story in my book.
Oh, wow.
So definitely more detail in there, and I'll keep you posted on that. But it was surreal. Like, I knew that this was coming, either jail or death. Like, I was going to die or I was going to go to jail. Like, rehab wasn't working. I didn't want it to work. It took me about a year in prison until I decided, like, I thought I could stay sober if they let me go. Like, a year went by, and then one day I was like, if they let me go, I might stay sober.
Wow.
It wasn't quick. It wasn't like, "Oh, I'll be good now," because I was in jail. Like, it took me a year to, like, set my mind on a path that was righteous.
Yeah. Had you had any run-ins with the law before that? Because I'm assuming using drugs and all these ways and stuff, you'd maybe had some run-ins with, like, getting...
A bunch. I mean, I wrote about them all in my book.
Okay.
I don't want, like, some of them.
This was the most
amusing.
severe for sure because it was armed robbery, right? I mean,
Yeah.
would that be what you got charged with, something like that, or?
I got robbery with threat of immediate bodily injury.
Oh, okay.
Because I didn't use a firearm. I used a BB gun. And it was my first offense, so they took it easy on me. So I got 2 to 4. My actual sentence was 20 to 48 months plus 4 years or 3 years of special probation. So it was like a 2 to 7 kind of.
Okay.
The way it worked out, I got out in 20 months. But, I mean, I had a bunch of run-ins, and some of them are, I think, fairly amusing. I was an idiot. Like, I almost got caught so many times.
Yeah.
I just talked my way out of it, or we just got lucky, or the cop just let us go. Like, there were so many times.
Sure. Because driving being high or drunk, probably,
and
those types of things,
and parked
right?
in corners, like, using drugs. Like, we were one time, I was in a truck with 2 of my friends, just to tell a quick story, and I had the needle in the girl's arm next to me, and the cop pulled up with his lights on. We were in an abandoned cul-de-sac. There was nothing around. We were just parked there getting high. And I had the needle in her arm, and I looked at her. I was like, "You want it?" And she's like, "Yeah." So I, like, shot her up, and we hid everything and talked our way out of it. Like, we were eyes bloodshot, like, looked like we were high as a kite, pinholes for pupils. She was holding a little wiener dog, and this cop comes up, and he's like, "Look, what's going on?" And I was like fumbling. I was like, "Oh, we're just sitting here talking. We're just talking." He's like, all right, well, I'm calling a female agent because we're going to pat you all down and search you. We're going to search the truck. We need to know what's going on. So we're shaking in our boots. We're freaking out. Mm-hmm. This female officer pulls me out of the car, and she's like, what's going on over here? I was like, we, on the spot, I didn't know what I was going to say. I was like, we came down here because she wanted to tell us that she was having an abortion. I was like, holy shit, how did I think of that? That was the best story ever.
Yeah.
So she looks at me, she almost gets teary-eyed, and she's like, I know how it is.
Oh, man.
I was like, that's the best fucking lie I ever told in my life.
Wow.
So she goes, tells the other cop. That cop comes over and is like, you guys have a good night. And they're like, what the fuck did you say to her?
Wow. Oh, my gosh. So like you had a lot of really like getting as close to the line as you could get of getting in trouble
that night. Yeah, I should have been arrested.
Yeah.
But it would have been a slap on the wrist. I would have gotten a couple months. I would have got sent to rehab again. Yeah. Like it wasn't going to fix anything.
But you had never been to jail prior to this.
No.
So for you, that's got to be a little bit scary because this is going from like, it's one thing to get the slap on the wrist jail. This is is really going to interfere with life. Did you feel a little bit of, I know some people that I talk to in the recovery community, when they hit rock bottom, it's really scary. Like, does that make sense? Like they know they're going to jail or they know they're in big trouble, right? Like they know this is going to be a game changer, but there's also a certain level of, maybe this is good because I think I might have died if I would have kept going down this road. And this might be, in some ways, a path that might lead to me not getting out of this cycle. Did you feel that way a little bit, or how long did it take you to feel that way?
Yeah, definitely not instantly. Instantly, it was just anger and resentment, and that self-reflection took months. And maybe that was that year point when I decided, like, this is positive. That I can get something out of this. I mean, I probably had those thoughts, like, a couple months in. It's kind of tough to pin down when that change happened. But I remember, like, one distinct day, I was like, it's been a year. Like, if they let me go, I'll be okay. So that's what I always tell people. Like, you have to get a year removed. Like, if you seriously want to make a change, like, that's how long it takes. Like, there's a light at the end of the tunnel, but it's not 30 days out. It's not 60 days. For me, it was a year, and it was the best thing that ever happened to me. Like, at that point, I was like, all right, we can take this. We can keep going. Like, it's no problem. Let's do it. Let's make something of ourselves. And that's when I started making plans, and that's when I started thinking about what I wanted out of life and what I could actually achieve rather than just getting by. Like,
so that night you get arrested, you go to jail, then you get sentenced. You go to prison, or you go to
Yeah. So jail. I mean, anything. It takes like 3 months to get sentenced. Yeah. It's different for everybody. The justice system is all over the place. If you get a lawyer, if you get bailed out, you can postpone your trial. Yeah. I expedited everything. My parents didn't bail me out. I asked, I begged, I pleaded, bail me out. Like, I'm going to be different. They knew what it was hitting for. Yeah. They were done. They had given me so many chances. Mm-hmm. They knew that this was the best place for me. I mean, that props to them, like, making me sit there and feel those feelings. They weren't going to cover it up. They weren't going to, push it over. They weren't going to hire a lawyer for me. I probably could have got out in a year. I probably could have got a 6 to 12 months with a good paid lawyer, but it wouldn't have been enough. Yeah. Like, it wouldn't have fixed me. I wouldn't have fixed myself. I didn't have enough time.
As a parent, that's a hard decision.
I can't imagine. I can't imagine them sitting there thinking like, I could bail him out and get him a lawyer and take it easy on him, but
it's so hard.
Yeah, I mean, this is their 5 years dealing with my shit
course.
Too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Deal with it yourself. Like, at least I was safe. At least I was getting fed, and then I had some time to think. Yeah,
they might have even felt a sense of, like, at least we know he's in a place where he's not using as, like, so you go to
county jail first. I mean, holding cell, county jail. And then
what's that experience like? What's the first week there like for you? For someone who's never been to jail before, what's that like? Like,
so I was in the holding cell, and the cop came in, and he's like, he brought Kaylin with, which is the girl I got arrested with, and he's like, you guys can talk and figure it out. You're both going to jail. Like, she had parole violations. I took the rap for the robbery because she had priors, and if she would have got new charges, she would have got real time. Mm-hmm. And but she was going back for parole violation. So he's like, you're both going to jail. Here's a cigarette. He lit our cigarettes and he said, just, kind of say goodbye. And we're sitting in that holding cell, and this isn't even in jail yet. And she's like, well, I have a razor blade in my pocket. We could just kill ourselves.
Oh my god.
So that was like rock bottom for me. Like at that point, and she was serious. She was if I had pulled it out, she'd have cut herself. Like she was not fucking around.
Oh my gosh.
So like at that point, I kind of had this feel like we're handcuffed, but sitting right next to each other. That was definitely the point. I was like, this is the worst day of my life. Like, how did I get here with this girl talking, like even contemplating this? Like, we know there's a lot of pain ahead. I know there's a lot of pain ahead, but it's not that type of pain. Like, we're getting through this thing. There's light somewhere. Wow. Somewhere I can feel it. So then we get taken off to county, and we make a plan. When he set us in the room together, she's like, tell him you did all the drugs. Tell him you did a bunch of barbiturates and you were drinking every day, because then you'll get detox drugs. And if you just tell him you did heroin, you won't get detox drugs. And then we'll go to the medical wing, and I can see you in the medical wing. But then once we're on the regular block, go to the library and put notes in book C27, because then we can communicate back and forth.
Oh my gosh. So you guys had like a whole plan.
She
had
was
the
there
plan.
4 times.
She's
like,
okay.
So,
oh my gosh,
I was like, just like absorbing all this. I was like, okay. I think I remember, like, she was like ready for this, like, because this was her life.
Wow.
So I go to the medical wing. She got put in a straitjacket because she played it to the hilt. They put her in a straitjacket and they gave her a bunch of drugs and like took care of her. I mean, she had been there multiple times, and I guess she was getting a little probably out of control or whatever. But I woke up. I don't know if I woke up or came to, or they put me in a medical wing. So it was like a cell by myself, and I just remember kicking the door, just like front kick, full on. I'm withdrawing. I'm shivering and shaking and angry and yelling, and I'm front kicking the door, and I'm just like trying, like literally to break this door down, because I'm stuck in a cell for the first time in my life, and I can't go anywhere. I just have to sit with my feelings, with my thoughts, no substances, and I'm freaking out. Like, so I'm kicking this door as hard as I can. I seriously am trying to break the cell door down, and this guard comes over. Doesn't give 2 shits. I'm going to put you in a straitjacket if you don't stop that right now. And I was like, well, that's going to be significantly worse than this. So I stopped kicking the door, and I started kicking the wall, I think. But, like, it was not a fun... I mean, those first 3-4 days on the medical wing was not pleasant. I mean, I was crying. I was curled up in the fetal. I was not sleeping. I was pooping and throwing up, and it just was like the worst combination of all the feelings I could have ever felt. But
had you had that experience before when you went to rehab in the past, but just not as bad, or was it as bad?
Yeah, at rehab they give you detox drugs, so they kind of wean you off of it, and there's like
it's a different
protocols,
process.
And it's a little softer. It's way softer. I mean, you can walk and you can smoke cigarettes and you can chew tobacco, and they give you muscle relaxers and they give you sleeping pills, and like it's not the same.
Yeah,
you need to feel that shit. Like lock them in a room. That's the only thing that's gonna fix me. So 3 days, and then like county jail is the first 3 months. So I got sentenced after like 2 months. Till I pled guilty. I went to court. I stood in court and I said, look, Judge, like I was a very awful person. I feel terrible for my, I was honest. I was like, look, I didn't know what I was doing. I've been addicted for 7 years. I think a year would be good for me. The prosecutors were gunning for 5 to 10 because of the gun. My public defender was shooting for 2 to 4. And I stood up there and I was like, look, Judge, like a year to 2 years would be good for me, like a 1 to 2. I told him, I was like, I want a 1 to 2. He kind of like smiled, because like no one else stood up and said anything. Everyone, like, because you have a chance to speak your word, and like everyone else was like, no, and they like took their sentence. No, they took their sentence. And he's like, Mr. Meyers, do you have anything to say? I was like, yeah. And I like gave him like my 2 bits, and I was like, I am a drug addict. Like I need a year or 2, like a 1 to 2. To think about my actions. And he's like, I'll give you 20 to 48 months. So I feel like he cut me 4 months off the top.
Yeah.
Because it's a very odd sentence, 20
Yeah.
to 48 months. Normally sentences are 12 to 24 or 24 to 48. They're very round numbers, 6 to 12 months.
Yeah.
So I feel like he cut me a break. Plus 3 years special probation. So I spent the first 3 months in county, and anything over a 1 to 2 goes upstate. So that's, an experience all in itself.
I was going to say, that's got to be a
Yeah, so now
whole
we're talking
different scenario.
state prison versus county jail.
So you're in county jail for 3 months, and then you head up to state?
So then I started getting transferred upstate. And to get transferred upstate, I was in Reading, so I was on the eastern part of the state. So I got transferred through Graterford, which is a holding jail. I mean, it is a state-run facility, but not everybody can get classified too quickly. Okay. So everybody has to go through Camp Hill. Anybody who's going upstate goes to Camp Hill. They get classified, they get sorted, they get tested, they get sent to their home jail. So it's kind of a process to get to your home jail.
Camp Hill is closer to home, too.
So I went to Graterford for 3 weeks, 4 weeks. I went to Camp Hill for 3 or 4 weeks, and then I got sent to Houtsdale, which was my home jail.
Where's that?
Houtsdale's up like half hour from Penn State.
Oh, okay.
So it's not too far from here. Luckily, it was like an hour, I think 2 hour drive, hour and a half for my parents to come see me once a month.
Wow.
Yeah. So that process was interesting. Upstate, you actually have more freedom than in county. The food's actually better. I mean, because people are doing years, they're doing life.
Yeah.
Right? So it's a little bit more relaxed than county. County's very strict. You have less time out of your cell. The food is terrible. You have less options on commissary. You can't smoke. Upstate, you can smoke cigarettes and chew tobacco, and you can buy coffee, and you can buy TVs, which you can't get in county. So it's definitely more accommodating, but you do much longer sentences. So.
And you're also with criminals. You're now interacting with criminals who are like
more serious.
Yeah. Did you? So as you come in, like, I mean, obviously you see all the movies and stuff where you come in and there's gangs and there's tribes or cliques or whatever you want to say in within the prison system. Are you finding yourself, falling into that, trying to establish where you're going to be, or did you just find that it was pretty easy to integrate into that? I'm just curious from your perspective how that
It is
went.
interesting. It's a whole nother microcosm. It's a whole nother economy. In county, everyone is kind of a big shot because everyone's still kind of getting out quickly, or in 6 months or 10 months, or I'm looking at 1 to 2. Yeah. Whereas when you go upstate, short sentences are 2 to 4. Most people are doing a 5 to 10. So, in county, everyone's still kind of butting elbows and like jostling for who's the cool guy. And like upstate, everyone's very quiet. Like people talk about their crimes like less. People are much more reserved, much more calculated. But still trying to live that lifestyle. So I was approached many times like, do you want to, you can work for me when you get out, because I had a shorter sentence upstate. And like, you could just, run some money, or you could just make a couple runs a month and you'd be making money. Like you could just,
Oh, wow.
So the network is still there, and you can very easily fall into that lifestyle, right? You can make more connections. You can find better connections for drugs. You can become a better dealer, a better criminal, a better, more connected criminal.
Wow.
But the gangs are pretty well established. I mean, you have very racial gangs that are split completely on race, right? And they stay to their own. Yeah. It's exactly like you see. I mean, there's a table full of Latin Kings, and there's a table full of Bloods, and there's a table full of whatever. Like people just congregate together. Like,
did you witness fights? I mean,
and they're all gang related. Yeah, pretty much all gang related. And so, yeah, you see people getting cut or see people like in the yard getting dragged out all bloody, like not like every day. It's not like all the time, but it definitely happens.
It's enough to remind you, like, I need to be careful. So was there a survivalistic element that kicked in of like, okay, I got to be cautious on who I connect with and how I connect with them? Or
Yeah, absolutely. I think, part of my fitness journey started out of fear, right? I'm this little guy going into prison. Like, I got to stand up for myself.
Yeah.
I don't want protection. I don't want somebody else. I need to be strong. I need to be my own person. So, yeah, the push-ups and the sit-ups started in county. It wasn't serious, but I, one, needed something to do, and two, was like scared out of my mind because I didn't know what I was getting into upstate. I had no idea what that was going to look like. I didn't know if people were going to be trying to take advantage of me, take my food. I didn't know if they were going to be pushing me around. I didn't know. I mean, you see videos and movies, like, these dudes are huge.
Yeah.
Big dudes in prison. Like, they've kind of tapered that down with feeding people less, but they're still there. Like, there's still big dudes upstate that, I've been there for 20 years lifting weights and just getting strong. Like, it's scary.
So you started doing fitness when you were in county.
Yeah.
And then once you got upstate, kept doing that. And fitness is a huge part of your life right now. So, like, let's talk a little bit about that. You had said when you were in high school, you'd played some sports here and there, but you'd never really made it your passion. I'm assuming as you're in prison, there's not a whole lot of things that can be your passion because there's just not a whole lot of options, right?
Yeah.
And there's not a whole lot of freedom, but maybe one place you can find a little bit of freedom is in doing push-ups and sit-ups and lifting weights and doing that. So tell everyone a little bit about like that journey of like finding that fitness was an outlet in this time of your life or a connection.
Yeah, so I always had the feelings of insecurity. I always had the feelings that I wasn't good enough. I always had, the fear of myself and what was going to happen. So as I'm sitting there for 20 hours a day in a cell by myself, I had to do something. So I had so much nervous energy. I knew how to do push-ups and I knew how to do squats kind of, and I knew how to do sit-ups. So that's what I did. I was freaking out. I needed to expend some energy. I couldn't keep punching the wall. So I just started doing push-ups out of necessity. Partially fear, partially anxiety. And that eventually just became the daily. That just became the habit because there's nothing else to do and all the time in the world to do it. The only book I had was the Bible. Like they give you a Bible for a reason. I mean, there's obvious reasons that they do that. So between fitness, push-ups and sit-ups and reading the Bible, like that's how you fill your day. Like there's a correlation there. So I kept doing push-ups, I kept doing sit-ups in county. That's like the first 3 months. The transition upstate was pretty rocky, so I wasn't very consistent with that. There's not a lot of food along the way. You're not well established. You don't have a lot of commissary, you don't have a lot of friends, so you don't really have a whole lot. You go to bed hungry a lot. You can't do too much exercise in that state. I would guess I was eating like 1,500 calories, maybe a little more. At like, I was probably like 175 at that point, and just hungry. So I couldn't work out that much in the transition. But then once I got upstate, and leading up to that, like it was just fear. I was just afraid of what was coming.
Yeah.
I was afraid of, not being strong. I was afraid of not, getting sober. I was afraid of myself. Like I knew there was going to be drugs upstate. I knew that there was going to be opportunities. Like I knew that there was going to be bad influences. So a lot of it was out of necessity and out of fear for the first 10 months, right, or so. And then I got to that year mark and I was upstate and I was sitting there and I was like, if they let me go, I'd stay sober. And that kind of triggered a whole line of thinking that was, I've been working out, like what else could I do, right? I started running because there was a track. I started doing workouts because I had a little bit more knowledge about how to work out. My mom was sending me workouts. She was doing CrossFit on the outside. And she would send me workouts because a lot of them were pull-ups, sit-ups, running, squats.
So like you were doing Murph pretty much.
So I did Murph every weekend for the foreseeable future.
You were doing Murph every weekend?
Yeah. So I was upstate for like 12 months. I wouldn't say every weekend, but I probably did Murph like 30 times in a year.
Man. Okay, so if you don't know what Murph is, just if you're listening to this and you don't have a clue what that is, Murph is a mile run, 100 pull-ups, 200 push-ups, 300 squats, and then another mile run. Man alive.
You're supposed to do it with a weight vest, but I didn't have a weight vest. But all we had was a yard with a quarter-mile track and a pull-up bar.
So that's pretty much what you had to do.
So it was perfect.
Yeah, it was perfect.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
that gets you in CrossFit shape real quick right there.
that's why I have an engine.
Yeah.
And running. Like, running was very peaceful for me. So about a year in, I was consistently getting to the yard. I was consistently getting more food. I was consistently, praying and sleeping, and my body was starting to respond. I was finally building muscle. I was finally getting faster. I was still smoking cigarettes upstate, but I could finally start running. I could finally start to see, I can do 5 pull-ups now, and I can do 10 pull-ups now. And pull-ups was a big one. Like, I could never do a pull-up. My first pull-ups was with some dude holding my feet, lifting me up. And you didn't kip in prison. You didn't swing on the bar. It was all strict.
Yeah.
So I did Murph 20 times with strict pull-ups before I ever learned to kip.
Oh, my gosh.
For CrossFitters, they'll understand. So it was very much a personal battle. I had a couple friends that, would tag along here and there and would do the push-ups with me or do the sit-ups. Sometimes I'd have a celly who was, fit, and we would do workouts. But that mission became my passion. So that, like, exercise and that self-discipline, like, I'm going to run every other day. I'm going to do push-ups in between. Like, that is what developed my mental fortitude to do other things, right?
Sure.
Just telling myself I was going to do something and sticking to it was difficult for me.
Yeah.
Making the bed every day was difficult. So I had to make that a thing. I had to say, all right, every day I'm going to get up, I'm going to make my bed, I'm going to line my shoes up, and I'm going to clean my cell. Like, I have 20 hours. Like, I can at least do that.
Yeah.
But that didn't come easy for me. I was a very messy person. I still am. Like, my natural state is just messy. Like, I don't clean up after I do things. I have to consciously clean. I have to consciously put things away because it doesn't come easy to me. But by practicing that, by learning discipline, by learning to force myself to do something I didn't want to do, I started to be able to do things that I could never do before, like run farther, like do more pull-ups, like anything, read the Bible. I made it my goal to read the whole Bible.
So tell me about that. So you're on the fitness journey, but then you're also handed a Bible, and you have a little bit of context, right? Because you went to church growing up, so it's not like you're handed a Bible and you don't know what this is. You probably
but I never took it. I never had my own journey.
Yeah. So you start reading the Bible. What's that like?
It's interesting.
Yeah.
I read it cover to cover.
Yeah. Like, what was your conclusion as you read it, or your thoughts?
Oh, I had lots of conclusions.
I'm sure.
I'm not saying I don't remember it all.
Yeah.
Like, it's a very complicated book, especially like reading it straight through.
Sure.
Like, that's not the best way to do it.
It's really not, like, in some ways.
Reading like numbers, you're like, what is this?
What is going on here? Yeah. Well, and so much of it, like, context wise, like, as someone who has degrees in studying the Bible, it's like I often am like trying to hand people a good starting point. You know what I mean? But like, just reading the Bible cover to cover can provide more confusion sometimes than help. But like, so you're diving into that. You're praying. You're like, tell me a little bit about what's happening spiritually with Jared at this time.
So I read pretty much every day something, just because there was nothing else to do. That was the entertainment. That's what you did after dinner, because there was, some downtime. You had a couple hours to chill. You got tired of talking to your celly because you're with them all day. Yeah. And you just sit and read. And the Bible, it started to make sense. Like, the stories started to mean something else. I never read the book for myself. I always listened to someone's interpretation of it. I always listened to a pastor's interpretation of it. And I felt like they were talking to me, but I didn't feel like the book was talking to me. I didn't make my own conclusions. I didn't come up with my own connections, which was huge. I mean, that book is there for a reason. Like, it stood the test of time for a reason. Like, the teachings and the learnings and the philosophies and the stories are phenomenal. I mean, I I can't like cite stories for you. I can't cite passages, but I know what I learned from that stuck. I know that the thoughts and the ideas and the learnings stuck. Day to day, it would connect with things that happened, or it would resonate with feelings or things that I said, and you start to develop a framework of how you want to live. So I would just would write down passages, and then I would pray about them later, or I would think about them in my daily actions. And at some point, I started to do a reflection every day before I went to bed. It was like prayer, meditation. I would lay there and I would just think about every interaction I had that day, and I would replay them in my mind, because you don't have too many interactions in a day. Like, yeah, you have a fair amount, but if you actually go through them, your brain works pretty quick. You can almost go through all your major interactions in a day in about 5 or 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. So I started to think about how I could have acted differently, how I could have spoke better, how I could have been nicer, how I could have acted better. And a lot of that was replaying what I had read in the Bible. So it was a learning process the whole way.
Yeah.
Not everything lined up, and some of the books were just like mud getting through them, but other times it was exactly what I needed to hear in that day.
Yeah.
So it gave me an outlet, it gave me a reason, it gave me more instruction than I had. It gave me a deeper connection with myself more than anything. I mean, I definitely have a connection with God, and I definitely understand Jesus a lot better, but it gave me that connection with myself more than anything.
Yeah.
Accountability for what I did throughout the day with something.
Yeah.
So then as I started to do these reflections at night, as interactions came up the next day or down the road, I could see what I was going to do ahead of time and change my actions.
That's so good, man.
That was a huge, huge change for me.
One of the filters I use is something similar to that of the fruits of the Spirit, which are love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, and self-control. So those kind of factors, considering how I can grow from the experiences, like you said, I've had in the last day or in the last week, or when I know I blew it and I didn't have self-control, or I wasn't kind, or I wasn't mentally telling myself that was not good. And it's so hard sometimes to admit to yourself, I could have done better. I should have done better. And then to say, next time I find myself in that situation, I need to take a breath. I need to remember that these fruits are what are going to birth in me and my relationships health. Does that make sense? These types of ideals. And I'm sure there was also an element of that, of also forgiving yourself in a lot of ways, right? The themes of forgiveness and redemption that are throughout the scriptures. I'm sure we're connecting with you, and maybe I am worth something. Maybe I can have a purpose in life. Because for so many addicts, that is the real root of their addiction, is self-worth and how they see themselves. And so when you say it was about you were connecting to yourself in a new way, I wonder how much of that was self-worth rising up. And also with fitness is probably helping that too. You're starting to be oh, I got muscles now. Wow, this is different. You know what I mean? Yeah,
it was a huge reflection. It was a huge mirror to look at myself, and it's encouraging that other people have gone through much harder times. I mean, you're sitting there in prison oh, this sucks. But then you read the stories of the oppression that happened, and you're like, these people died. Yeah. Right? For what they believe in, or what they did, or whatever. That type of, if you actually put yourself in that situation, you're not doing too bad in prison. You got food, you got temperature control, you got blankets and pillows. They didn't have any of that.
Perspective helps.
So that was huge too. There's a lot of suffering.
So you get out eventually. How long did you end up staying?
I did 20 months total. 20 months?
Okay, so you got out on good behavior and all that? Because you got out right away?
Yeah, I mean, they kind of got rid of good behavior while I was in. I don't know how that works. Yeah. And normally you would get out a couple months before your minimum. Okay. But I think the judge also knew that they were getting rid of that, and that's why he gave me the weird sentence of 20 to 48. I don't know. I mean, I didn't get to talk to the judge, but I always like to think that he was nice.
But you got out in 20 months?
20 months.
Where'd you go then?
Home. Yeah, so my parents let me come home, gave me another chance, and they didn't trust me right away. I mean, I had to prove myself again. I got a job within a couple weeks. I worked at a concrete plant. I had to do intensive outpatient drug rehab, which was 3 hours a day, 3 days a week, or something like that.
Wow.
So I was working night shift, doing this 3 hours a day, like not sleeping that. Like it was a trying time for me, energy-wise.
Were you doing CrossFit at that time, or were you just kind of just?
No, so I was still working out. I had developed a pretty solid workout plan that I kind of stuck to. I'd started doing weights towards the end of my stay. They do have a weight room, so I was, started to squat, deadlift, press, get some weights in my life, but I wasn't doing any weighted CrossFit. So I kind of kept doing that. Like that was kind of my plan. I would run 2 or 3 times a week. I would go to the gym every day or, 5 times a week, and I would just lift. I would do arms and back, and I would do shoulders, and I would do squats and deadlifts. Stuff, yeah, and then I would do some CrossFit, but it wasn't kipping. It wasn't clean and jerks. It wasn't snatches. It was like box jumps and burpees and jump rope, like the terrible stuff, just in workouts.
The engine stuff.
Yeah, and I would build my strength separate. So I was not anti-CrossFit, but I was like, I don't need that. Like I have a good program, right? Like I'm very personal about this. Like it's my mission. I want to be the strongest I can for myself.
Yeah.
Partially it was, selfish in that I wanted to get a hot chick too, but I mean, that all like was along the way. Like that it was partially externally motivated, but it turned into I want to be the best human I can be.
Sure.
In all aspects. I want to be the most fit. I want to be the most kind. I want to be the most helpful. Like I just want to be a good person at this point. And the Bible was big on that. Like just being a good person for the sake of being a good person. Sure. Like you don't have to
love
do
your
it
neighbor
for any reason. Like you just have to love. You just have to be kind.
Yeah.
So that's one of my core values. My core values are humble, passionate, relentless, and kind. And that has evolved over time to passionate, fearless, relentless, and kind. I dropped the humble because I think that comes naturally to me.
Sure.
And it's going to hold me back not being fearless. So fear is kind of one of my big inhibitors in business, in life. So if I can focus more on being fearless, it's going to help me more than humility, because I think humility comes more naturally for me. And I only wanted 4 things because I can't remember that many things.
Oh, that's great. No, and I think there was a point in me that evolved to where fearlessness became important. Like, and what I mean by fearlessness in my case was like, there would be a lot of things that I would feel like I should do, but I wouldn't do because I felt like I'd be concerned about what someone else might think. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? 100%. And then like over time it was like, I think probably when I hit my 30s, I was like, I just don't care what other people think anymore. And why did I let that stop me from doing these things that I wanted to do? Like why?
Yeah.
And it's not that they're bad things that like the people I really love are going to like, it was more the peer pressure, like the high school peer pressure you feel of like, I better dress this way or else my peer group's not going to accept me. Like I realized how immature it was. So like a certain level of fearlessness to me became a value. I not necessarily wrote it down. It's not like I have like, these are my 4 values, but I think a level of like, be true to what you feel called to, despite what other people think about that and about you. And as long as the people you love and that you know are like established relationships in your life, like don't listen to the noise kind of was really the big thing, And I think a lot of times that noise can be it can control a lot of what we do. So I think fearlessness is a good value.
It's hard,
it is. It's very hard. So you're out, you're working, you're going to rehab. How long does that last? Like before?
So the rehab was, I want to say 2 months or something like that, or
because that's intensive. 3 hours a day is pretty intense.
It was a lot. Yeah, I mean, I would work nights. I would work like 10 hours overnight, and then I would have to stay up because I get off at like 7 a.m. and I have to stay up till 10 to go to this 3-hour class, 10 to 1, and then I'd have to be back in at work at like 9 or 10. So it was a tough time, but I had the the fire was lit. I didn't care. I was going to do it at that point.
Yeah.
I was going to stay sober. I was going to work hard, and I was going to make something.
And you
myself.
also developed a routine of discipline in prison, like waking up and making the bed and doing like so.
Right.
You were able to probably create some type of routine around that schedule, even though it wasn't ideal.
And I had some physical capacity because I was exercising. I had that resilience to not sleep and work back to back 10-hour shifts. I mean. The concrete plant was tough work. I mean, I was in shape and it was tough. Like sweating for hours on end, swinging a hammer, lifting 100-pound panels. Like it was work. Like for 8 hours. And then I would go to this rehab, and I actually started hooking up with a girl in the rehab again because that's just my nature apparently. Like hot girl. Oh, look at her. Like let's. Yeah. So we had like this fling for a while, and that was wearing on my energy also. Because I just wasn't sleeping. Like I knew that was bad, and then but I didn't have much else going on, so I could just go home and just crash out for my evenings. Like I selfishly took time to sleep, and I didn't do too much hobby wise, and so that lasted for about 3 months of rehab, and then I was at the concrete plant for 18 months. And I was, getting into the routine, and I was working out, and I was getting stronger, kind of. I was cleaning up my diet a little bit. I stopped drinking soda during that time and stopped eating cakes. And cakes, I mean like tasty cakes every day, like habitually. Because I ate sugar at that point. But slowly started refining my diet, and then I was sitting there, and I was like 18 months in, I was like, this isn't what I want to do for the rest of my life. I had a car, I was paying off my car, I was looking at getting an apartment, and I was like, I don't want to work in this concrete plant for the rest of my life. Yeah. So I did some soul searching, I did some research, and I was like, I'm going to go back and finish my degree. So I asked my parents if I could stay there for another year or two and go back and get my degree and make something of my life. My goal, I was making like $30,000 a year at the concrete plant, maybe a little bit more, working 12-hour days, like working my tail off. Yeah. I wasn't going to get out of the hole that way. Yeah. So my goal was, I knew school was going to be expensive, but if I could increase my income to $50,000 per year in 5 years, it would pay for itself. So I had to justify the expense of going back to school to myself. And I didn't know how I was going to pay it off. I didn't know where I was going to work. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do, but I had that number. And once I picked the number and I had a goal, I could work towards it. Sure. So not that I'm super goal-oriented, but like when I pick something and I stick to it, I work a little bit every day to make it towards that goal. Sure. So I went back to school for business education, spent 2 years doing that. I got some loans. And at that point is when I started doing CrossFit.
While you were in college?
Right, yeah. Right about the same time that I started college, it opened up a lot of more free time for me. I did a CrossFit competition, and Mare and Ty saw me there, and they came over, and they're like, hey, we want you to coach. We heard you don't have a gym. And I was like, I have a gym. It's New York Fitness.
Oh, that's great.
Like, no, like we want you to coach at our CrossFit
How
gym.
long ago was that?
4 years ago.
Jeez.
Almost.
Wow.
Yeah.
So Mare and Ty just saw you, and Meredith and Ty Rost, they saw you, the owners of CrossFit Gamma, at a competition. Which competition?
This was Ephrata.
Ephrata, like Lenko games?
Not Lenko. It was a turkey throwdown of like 2014.
And how long were you in CrossFit when you did that, or did you just do? You weren't even at a CrossFit gym.
I was doing strict pull-ups and terrible thrusters. Yeah, it was not great. I had done that competition twice, I think, and it was the second time I did it. And I did slightly better than the first time I did it, so I was happy. I was improving, getting fitter. I didn't have skills. Like, I just muscled through everything, and I ran really fast. So I was like, no, I'll try. I can't afford it, first of all. Like, I was in college. I didn't have money at that point. I was bumming off my mom and dad. My mom knew what CrossFit was. She was doing CrossFit years prior and had stopped, but... So I like knew what CrossFit was. Like I was following the workouts. I would do some main site stuff. And
Ty and Mare wanted you to coach though. They didn't even know if you were a good coach at that time, or what did they know about you? How did they know you?
They saw my passion in my workouts.
Nice.
I was in it. I was dedicated. I was blood, sweat, and tears in every workout, and I was ferocious, and
I've seen you work out, dude. That's exactly.
That's what they said. Yeah, they're like, I don't even know, but like you have it, like you have that tenacity.
I'll never forget. What was it? Was it 18.1 or 18.2? Oh, which one was it? I don't know. It was 17. Which one was it with the burpee box?
Yeah,
dude. What did you? How did you fit? What did? Do you remember what you?
I was like second in
in the region.
In the region or something. Yeah,
dude. I remember watching part of the video of that or something, and I was just like, Jared, I don't know if I could go that fast in burpee box overs, like sprinting for like 20 seconds, and you were going that fast. For like, it was like a 20-minute workout.
It was a 10-minute workout.
Oh, it just seemed like forever though, because I remember that workout. Was it a 10-minute workout?
For me.
Yeah, for you. Yeah, I'm gonna say it was a 20-minute workout for everyone else. That's what I'm trying to say. So like I just remember looking. I'm like, Jared is just in a whole different world. So I could totally see how Ty and Mare could see that and be like, this person doesn't have a CrossFit gym and needs a place. So how did that? So you stayed in touch with them, or did you jump on that right away because you said you were apprehensive because you?
Yeah, I was apprehensive. I was like, I'll come check it out, and they're like, all right, yeah, no problem, we can make it work. And they charged me like half price or something for the first month because they just really wanted me to come and like see the community because they knew that that's what I was missing. Like I didn't have like a group of friends there cheering for me. I had like my parents, which was dope. Like. But I didn't have, the group of friends teaching me how to stretch and teaching me how to do muscle ups and teaching me how to snatch. Like that type of stuff takes an army. Like that takes a community to share those skills because it's very rare that somebody's good at all of them. Mm-hmm. So yeah, the first month I was like, I don't know, like I guess I could coach down the road, but I have to learn a lot of stuff first. And like I have to, feel a part of the community because I don't, I want to be something, for that community. I don't just want to exist. Like I want to thrive.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was super apprehensive going in, and it was right about open season. The Open is an online qualifier that happens every year for CrossFit, and it leads to the games. It's changing this year, so the format's going to change a little bit. But at that time, it's still a yearly competition that everyone kind of gets pretty hype about and puts a lot of effort in. And it was right about that time that I started at Gamma. And it was cool because everyone like got together on a Thursday or Friday night and they were like watching these workouts being announced, and then they all did the workout, and like it was cool because I didn't have that experience ever. And I knew that I fit in and that I was capable because I was doing fairly well, and I didn't even know how to do the movements. I didn't know how to do kipping. I didn't know how to. I was just like giving it my all and ripping my hands and having a good time. But that led to me going to get my L1 certification, which was your CrossFit teaching certification so that you can teach classes. And I remember sitting there like, man, I'm way fitter than all these people.
Yeah.
And that was like a very selfish, like cocky, like realization. But I was like, yeah, I can do this. Like I got what it takes. Like if I learn the skills, like I can do whatever. Like I could go to the games. Like, because I didn't know like how elite that was at that point. Yeah. But for like a fleeting moment, I was like, yeah, I could be a competitor. Mm-hmm. And that ended like a month later. But it was like
did not.
It was a great like learning. It was a whole new like fire in my stomach. It was a whole new passion for life. I had a whole new pathway to go down and learn that I hadn't expected. So I have a lot more time to kind of be at the gym. I'm in college. I'm getting straight A's for the first time in my life. Like I was applying myself in all aspects, and that felt good. Like I was still living at home. I still felt like a child because I wasn't supporting myself. So there's definitely still insecurity there. Like I was like just trying to get on my feet, but taking my time. Like I wasn't, trying to rush out of my parents. I was spending time with my parents because I had spent so many years hiding from them, and they didn't know who I was. And they were just happy that I was sober and that I was like being a good person, that they wanted me to stay. So it was a really great time for those 2 years because I could develop an honest relationship with my parents and tell them, what was going on in my life. And they're like, man, like we don't even want to know almost at this point. Like, we're just glad you're better. But it was wonderful. And I'm blessed to be able to have that experience. But I tell people, like, even if I wouldn't have paroled home, I still would have made it. Like, because I had that mindset made up. Like, it wasn't about my situation. It wasn't about like, oh, well, my parents helped me. Like, yeah, they definitely did. And I'm grateful beyond belief. But if I had to do it on my own, I still would have made something out of my life. Whether I would still be at the concrete plant, hammering nails and sweating my tits off, like I was going to make something of my life. Whatever that was, like whatever that is.
Sure.
I was blessed with that opportunity, so I want to create something that's special that can help other people now. Like my mission is to share my story and inspire other people and set up systems that can help other people in whatever situation become a better person.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. So just the athlete side, because you said that faded fast. Dude, you went to regionals on a team. Like, tell people a little bit about that journey. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so regionals is a competition. If you qualify good enough in the open, you can go to regionals. And my placings, I mean, there's like 3,000 men in our division, in our region.
Yeah.
My best finishes were, I think I finished like 78, 48, 38 or something like that. I did all right. Top 20 go to regionals as an individual. And that kind of was always my goal, was top 20. So like I tried 2 years, 2 years in a row. 1 year I tried pretty hard. I mean, I tried hard every year. I'm not gonna I always gave my all for the open and just to honestly measure myself against other people and see where I was. So I did well in that arena, and I'm always proud of how I do. But there's always room for improvement. So we talk about this a lot, like being content with where you're at, but striving for more. Is a constant debate in my head. Like, how do I not just say, okay, I've done it, I'm good, I can just chill now. I achieved some fitness, I helped some people, I can just kind of sit back and relax, and versus like always striving for the next level, like. And being unhappy that I didn't make it as an individual, and unhappy that I didn't, win some prestigious prize or get to the next level or achieve the next achievement. There's got to be a balance there. So yeah, I'm happy with how I did. I mean, I think it's crazy that where my fitness has taken me and the things that I'm capable of. I'm grateful for my abilities, and regionals was kind of like a culmination of that. So we sent a team. It was my cousin, his wife, and their one friend, because you need 2 guys and 2 girls to do this team competition. So it was a great time. We qualified. It was kind of stressful qualifying, but then once we were there, I mean, we were just having fun. We knew we pretty much didn't have a shot of going to the games, right? We weren't going to be top 3 at regionals. There's some very serious athletes on that top podium, and we were just having fun. It was a blast. There were so many fit people in one area, and everyone was just throwing down and giving it their all and sweat and tears, and that is a wonderful, unique experience that I'm blessed to have. So regionals was a blast. They're not doing regionals the same way anymore. Now they're doing qualifiers. So I'm still talking to some people about maybe trying to get a team together for that, and that might happen down the road. Like, it's not off the table. There's still an opportunity to compete on a team. I feel like I'm good enough to be a team athlete. I did one of the qualifiers for one of the sanctioned events, and I got 53, and again, you have to be top 20 to go to this competition, which is similar to regionals, but it's super competitive. I mean, these
sanctioned events, because the new way is that the way to get to the games is to win a sanctioned event. Right? Like, I mean, we don't have to go into all that for people who aren't in CrossFit, but like
that's the competitive series.
That's the that's regionals now is the way it's saying. Like, so like, and there's a bunch of them. There's like 12 of them or whatever, and so, or maybe even 16. I don't know, but And then, or you have to win the Open
Or you have
in
to win
your
the Open.
region, or not in your region, in your country.
I think in the country, I don't know. Nobody really
You're not in
knows
the
what's
best country
happening.
for how that's going to work out, Jared.
Yeah, so
But no, I mean, I think the cool thing is like we don't know what all this is going to pan out. There might still be a path for you to compete in that. And either way, I love the Open even for the standpoint of like, I'm not an athlete in any sense of like competitive, but like it was crazy to see my number from the first year I did CrossFit to the second year I did CrossFit to do the Open and be like, oh wow, like I went from like 100,000 to like 70,000th in the world or something. And you're like, whoa, I made like a 30,000 jump. Like, and that seems minuscule until you like look at it and you're like, wow, I learned how to do a pull up between here and there. I learned how to do this between here and there. Like, and you're like, oh man, or my clean and jerk went from here to here. Like, and you're just, when you step back, so much in CrossFit is transferable in life, like in the sense of like just growth and kind of that already, but not yet mindset that like, already, I have accomplished some stuff, but not yet. Like, there's still more. Like, you know what I mean? And like, that is a tension I think that plays not just in CrossFit, but in life too. You know what I mean? Like, oh, my relationship with my wife is great, but it could be better. Like, and I should be thankful for where it's at now, but I also want to grow it. I also want to invest in it. I don't want to get complacent. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think it's that growth mindset is really helpful. For me, it's been very helpful in parenting. And, you know, doing my best to be a good husband and doing my best to be a good person. You know, it's super helpful to have that growth mindset, but to also look back and be like, and celebrate what you've accomplished, you know, in relationships or in life. And so that's awesome. So
for me, it started just like at a base level. I had to follow my heart, right? And follow my gut because I knew what was right and wrong, right? I know what's like, I have a guiding compass. But I have to honestly follow that, even though like people are leading me astray or people might suggest something different and I want to agree with them. But if I know what's right in my heart, I can't just give in to that temptation. I just can't give in and say, oh, yeah, you're right. I can listen to, you know, try to like influence them and show them why but I just can't like blindly follow anymore. I have to, you know, put it into my framework and acknowledge if that's something that I want to do or not and follow my heart, because then I can start to do progressive things and I can start to contemplate, you know, which direction I want to go. But if I don't like actually contemplate if it's good or bad, then I have no direction. So then I can start to be open-minded. I can start to be, you know, contemplative on different topics, like, you know, if I want to eat sugar or not, or if I want to, like, then I can have a reason, then I can have a choice. But at that basic level, if I don't follow my moral compass and I don't develop some fortitude, I'm never going to be able to make conscious, informed decisions on my own behalf. I'm just going to kind of meander through life, and I see it all the time. And I think at that basic level, we have to make a change, or I had to make a change, because I wasn't going to get anywhere just kind of dilly-dallying or kind of flip-flopping or just doing whatever I felt like versus what I knew what was right.
So how long have you been CrossFit coaching now?
4 years. I'm up for renewal soon. Every 5 years you have to get your L1 renewed.
Again? Did you meet Cher at Gamma or?
Yep. So we met
because she's a coach at Gamma too. I guess if people don't know.
About a year into Gamma, Cher walked in, and she was strong and tall and beautiful and blonde, and I was instantly interested. I wasn't like serious, so we like talked a little bit. And
did she come in as a coach or as an athlete?
Yeah, she didn't have her L1 even.
Okay.
She was an athlete. She had done some other things. She was doing MMA for a while, and she had done CrossFit for a while.
Cher did MMA?
She did
I
like
didn't
a
know
stint,
that.
but she was very much like jumping from one thing to another.
I could see Cher doing MMA.
Yeah, she's mean. She like ran for a while, and she did some like half marathons and a bunch of half marathons, and then she did a full marathon, and then she was kind of over that, and then she did like some MMA and some CrossFit and some strongman. And she just like was new to the area, and she's like, "Oh, I'm gonna do some more CrossFit." Like, she's gonna do that for a while. So she came in, and she was a great athlete. Like, she had the push, she had the drive, she had that look in her eye, and the strength and the tenacity. So we connected on that level. And then at some point, I found out she was sober, and that's when I became seriously interested, because I didn't want a relationship. I was very much on my own journey still. I was very much, girls are just for fun at this point. I was talking to some girls, but I wasn't seeing them, right? Like, it wasn't serious. I was all, invested in what I wanted to do with my life at that point. And a girl didn't fit into that picture. I was still nervous. I was still unsure of what type of girl I wanted and what,
And a lot of it probably because such of the stuff you had done in your past that you were trying to get away from was attached to some of the relationships you had, right?
It, yeah.
So it was like, I want to make sure if I'm going to dive into
so
a
I did
relationship.
I did have a serious relationship before Cher. I was in college. So that was, let me think, I put it in a time frame. I did 2 years of college to get my degree when I went back. And I met a girl pretty early on, and I dated her for that whole college experience pretty much.
Yeah.
Until about 3 months before I graduated. I took an honest look. She was very different from anything that I had ever had before. She was very safe. She was very sober, but not because she had done a bunch of drugs, because she had done none. She was very smart. She was very book smart. She was very analytical. She liked cats. She wanted to live in the city. And she liked, just everything that I did. She was a vegetarian. I ate all of the meat. And not that I have a problem with, obviously you're a vegetarian. Like, obviously I don't have,
Jared knows I'm a vegetarian, so now he's going to double back. I don't have a problem with vegetarians, Justin. It's okay. No, I know what you mean.
She just didn't want to kill animals, which is fine. Good. But it wasn't for health reasons at all.
Yeah.
Like, I was trying to be healthy, right?
Sure.
Like, I eat a lot of animals, but I try to eat healthy.
Yeah.
And
but you realized there was an incompatibility there,
just
long
very
term.
different. And I had just ended that relationship, and I was kind of putting feelers out at the gym, like single, like maybe looking for something, maybe looking to have fun. And like, people knew, like, girls talk, whatever. Like, so she came in, and it was instant. Like, I didn't want a serious relationship because I'd just gotten out of that, and like, that was serious. She was like, we were getting ready to graduate and stuff, and I just knew that wasn't going to be it. I knew I could have just, she was going to make a ton of money, and I could have just done whatever I wanted for the rest of my life.
Oh, okay.
Like,
wow.
Not a ton, but she was going to be well off. And I didn't want to fall into that trap because I wasn't going to be fulfilled if I didn't have to work for something for myself. And I knew to build something for myself, I needed to have nothing. Right? Because I wouldn't have the desire. I wouldn't have the drive. So all this fits into the framework of wanting to help people. I wanted to share my story. I want to help other people get sober. I want to help other people fulfill their life that are feeling unfulfilled. Yeah. Because there's a void there. That's what I think it's all about. So I met Cher. She told me she was sober because she had some, issues. And that is when I realized that I wanted to see what this girl was actually about and not just get to know her. So then I started pursuing her, and she was recently out of a relationship. She's like, no, I don't know. No, you're crazy. You're kind of weird. And I don't want a relationship. Like, you're a coach. Like, I don't want it to be weird at the gym. And like, she had a million reasons why.
Sure.
So we started talking, and I'd say it's, 3-4 weeks before we admit that we like each other, maybe a little bit longer. So then we started dating like New Year's of 2015, 2016, 16, 17, 18, 19, 2016, I think. 4 years. We got married. We got engaged a year later and married a year after that. So
yeah, man.
Progressed pretty quick. We moved in right away together. We get along perfectly. We're much more similar. Goals are oriented much more. We push each other to be better a lot more, and that's why I think it works a lot better, because we both know where we came from and what we want, so we keep pushing each other to be better, right? And that's a very special relationship to me, is that type of honest, like, drive to want to help the other person, because I never had that before. I never, like, honestly just wanted to make her life easier and help her achieve her goals, I was much more like, what can I get out of this relationship, not what can I bring to this relationship.
Yeah.
So that was life changing too. Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. So these days you're doing personal training and you're still CrossFit coaching. Like you're still in classes.
Yep.
You coached last night's class.
Yep. 2 classes.
Yeah. I was in that class last night.
It was fun.
And you're also still doing like personal training, like where you just have people come in, for like a half hour session, an hour session or something?
1 hour. Yeah.
How's that going?
It's going awesome. And
that's new, right? That's new in the last, few months?
In a year. I've been doing it for a year now.
Now? Okay.
Yeah. Time flies.
Yeah.
So I started January 1 of the last year, 2018, personal training. I was going to go part-time at my job, so I was working at a ranch, just cutting grass, chopping wood, and tearing down barns. And as a job, like as a manual labor job, it was dope. It was pretty much relaxed. You could pretty much do your own thing. You knew what was required, and you just went and did it. It paid okay. It paid better than any job I had before, but it still wasn't enough to get on top. I still wasn't, getting on top. I was still going to struggle for a while to, achieve that level of security. And I really appreciate freedom more than the paycheck. So
sure.
I knew I needed to do something for myself. And the plan was to do personal training, start writing a book, and do public speaking so that I can spread the message, help people, and have financial security so that I can travel and help more people. So
awesome.
Ideally, I want to be able to get Cher to quit her job so that she can do the same thing, personal training and life coaching, nutrition coaching, and just help people in general. But that we can travel and see the country and do engagements and drop in at gyms and just spread the good word, spread the positive message and spread love to the world. Yeah. And that's the dream. I mean, that's the ultimate goal, is that we can just be financially stable enough to travel and spread the good word, do some public speaking, sell the book, and just be happy.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
When do you think the book's going to come out?
I'd say another year.
Yeah.
I'm plugging away pretty good at this point. It was hard to find a balance between. So I started doing personal training and it took off really quick. I expected to have like 6 months to like just write this book, but I ended up being super busy. Pretty quick.
You are pretty busy, man. I mean, because I go to 5 a.m. sometimes. I try to be at 5 a.m. most times, but like even then, you're sometimes training already at 5 or 6, and then like even in the evenings you're training, and throughout the day, like you got a lot of clients, huh?
Yeah, I mean I'm up to almost 40 hours a week of personal training.
Wow.
And I do on-ramp for the gym, and I have to travel, a little bit of driving to see some clients at their houses. But it's awesome. I mean, I get to talk to people about what their fears are and what their insecurities are and help them work through why they're not feeling good today and what they ate and how they slept, because it's a combination of all those things that you feel good and you're able to exercise in a positive way. Like we're not just trying to go in there hungry, angry, tired, and pound some weights. Like that's not going to get us to our goal. Like we need to be well nourished. We need to be well slept, well kept, and then go and push ourselves over that line a little bit farther each day. Yeah. To get to the next level and then recover.
That's what CrossFit's taught me so much about too, is like, and like people like Ben Bergeron, who has a podcast, Chasing Excellence, which is really good. Like in the sense of like, nutrition is so vitally important. Sleep is so vitally important. How you recover is so vitally important. Whereas like in bodybuilding, I was just kind of like Globo Gym, pop in, do chest, back, arms, whatever, like legs, like, and do that 4 times a week and maybe run on the treadmill for 20 minutes or something and go, and like, but never paid attention to nutrition, really. Didn't care if I got 4 hours of sleep,
Maybe what kind of protein are you taking, bro?
Oh, yeah, of course. GNC will tell you everything. Yeah. Well, and like you learn later, like the protein is such a small factor in comparison to all these other things. Like it's such a small little dial. And like, and as CrossFit has helped me dial those things in, and I've heard you and other coaches talk about the importance of that, and people like Ben Bergeron, other thinkers and leaders in that community, I'm like, wow, I never realized how much until I did it. Like I had my nutrition really dialed in this summer. And like my CrossFit workouts, not initially when I dialed it in, because it was definitely an adjustment of like, what I was, taking in. But then once I got into that rhythm of that, nutritional way, like, and I was sleeping well, I just had a whole different level of energy in the gym. And I would even say in life of like, patience and understanding and just like an ability to kind of like reflect more.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Your
like
brain
I really,
works better.
yeah, your brain works better.
I think that was part of my addiction, is just malnutrition. And I wasn't focused on, I didn't care to feed myself well because I didn't know how good I'd feel.
Yeah.
And dealing with the general population doing personal training, it's amazing what people fuel their body with, and then the energy that they don't have and the things that they're missing out on. When they start eating, they're like, holy cow, I feel amazing.
Yeah.
Like not to mention like losing weight and gaining muscle and liking how they look, but just how their brain is functioning. They start to talk faster. They start to be more excited. They have a glow. Like that's all nutrition. Like we can exercise all we want, but if you're not eating and sleeping right, I feel a million times better, right? Like sometimes I'm like, I need to go eat some vegetables. Like I just am not on point.
Yeah.
Like, and it's just completely like what I ate the day before, or the 2 days before.
Yeah. And my first like 6 months of CrossFit, maybe even my first year of CrossFit, I was very disciplined about no matter what time I go to bed, I'm at 5 a.m. class, because I needed that at that moment. I just needed that, like, no matter what, I'm doing it. And now, like, I had a late meeting the other day, and so I didn't get to bed till like midnight, which is really rare for me. But I'm like, I'm not waking up at 4:20 to go to 5 a.m. class, because I could do that. I could physically do that. I'm gonna have a crappy workout. I'm gonna be tired all day. Yeah. It's gonna be awful. So I came to the evening class. Does that make sense? Like last night with you. And it's like, the thing is like, I've also given myself freedom to say, look, the better thing, the healthier thing to do is to say, okay, I'm going to evening class tonight. Like and like even learning how some of those disciplines were working against me, because I would be like, look, I did the right thing for my body today, but I actually had really bad recovery, and that's going to take 2 or 3 days to recover from only getting 4 hours of sleep that night. You know what I mean? Like, so like learning about my body in that way has been really interesting and like unique, because I never really thought of it that way. I never thought sleep was so important. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? And
all my barriers are nutrition and sleep at this point. Like how well can I recover? Like I know what I have to do. And I mean, time in the gym is one thing. Like if I allocate the right amount of time in the gym, but all of my strength increases are going to happen if I eat better. All of my skill acquisition is going to happen if I spend the time in the gym and sleep better, right? So that I can process those thoughts. But if I'm just exercising more and more, right, like my shoulder just isn't going to get stronger. I have to eat better and then rest it and then sleep and then do it again slightly harder. But all of my, at this point, all of my gains are nutrition and sleep.
Yeah, that's so fascinating, because most people don't think that way.
Yeah, like I can just maintain and like get by. But I'm not going to get better if I don't change anything, if I don't really focus on nutrition.
So what
really
are you doing nutrition? What are you doing nutrition-wise right now personally? I'm just curious.
I have a pretty well-established like routine. I wake up. I usually make 6 eggs, bacon, and oatmeal. I don't follow any like calorie requirement for the day. I do track for a period of time to see what my balance looks like, and I'm higher on the fat than most people are because I eat bacon and eggs almost every day.
Sure.
I eat mostly turkey and chicken as my meals, so we'll meal prep. Sometimes twice a week. Once a week, I usually make soup. And that's different. It's a bunch of vegetables. It's a whole chicken that I cook down. Yeah. Make the bone broth, onions, tomatoes, mushrooms, squashes, peppers, whatever vegetables I feel like putting in there. And that's one of my favorite weekly meal preps. I'll eat that every week. It's always different. I put different flavors in, but that's like usually our lunch for 3 or 4 days of the week. Okay. And then we'll make big dinners and meal prep the rest for lunch. So that usually consists of turkey burgers or like a stir fry or a chicken bake or some sort of turkey or chicken that we put with vegetables, and we just make it 100 different ways. So you just have to be creative and decide how you're going to eat your chicken and vegetables that day. Yeah. I eat red meat. I eat fish. I try to keep red meat limited to once or twice a week. But really, the past 4 months, we've been focusing more on vegetables. So we just have a ton of frozen vegetables. We have a ton of fresh vegetables, and we just try to eat with every meal some sort of vegetable.
Okay.
So that's kind of like the quick version of it. I do try to keep my carbs steady through the day and put my sugars around workouts.
Yeah, because you don't do sugar. Like you don't do sugar much, but you do it at only one particular time.
Yeah, after a workout, a lot of times I'll take sugar.
Why do you do that?
I was doing a protein shake with sugar in it to spike my insulin and increase absorption, but recently I stopped doing that too because I just wanted to see how much effect it was having, just to do like a 2-month, taper off of that, I would say. And so I still do some protein, but mostly I'll eat some figs after a workout, or a fig bar, or some sort of higher sugar content food at that point. But then throughout the day, like I don't have sugary treats. It'll be like oatmeal for breakfast, rice for lunch, and ideally like a sweet potato for dinner. Or we do eat bread, so I will eat like pita with whole wheat, or I'll eat bagels, mostly whole wheat stuff. I try to limit enriched flours, sugars, that type of nutrient. It doesn't sit well. It's not as nutrient dense. So I do try to I have some things there that I don't cross that line. Like I never eat fried food. Occasionally I'll have like fried wings, but not like breaded chicken pretty much ever. I pretty much never eat French fries. They just don't have like a nutrient value to me. My cheats would be like bacon, or like a really good burger, or that type of like greasy, or it would be more of a cheat for me. Versus like eating candy bars or eating ice cream. I mean, I eat ice cream sometimes. Like I have my moments, but they're just few and far between, right? Like, so I treat myself, like anyone else should. Like I try to explain that to people. Like, you're going to have birthday parties, you're going to have Christmas, but you don't need like a daily slushy habit, for example. And that's like a very obvious one. But like the sodas and the teas and the high sugar content stuff is what I really caution people against as a daily habit. Yeah.
I've seen you're pretty strict with your diet, though. I feel like, or at least, and maybe that's also like when you guys were leading up to regionals, or leading up to qualifying for regionals. I know you were dialing all that in because, like you said, there's a lot to be gained in the gym when you dial that stuff in, and when you get really serious about that. I would say I am
more so than most people I know. I have stricter habits, but I'm not perfect. I mean, I have cheats, and people are amazed when they see me eating a cheeseburger or like a cake or something, because it is rare, but it happens. Like it's not like I'm never eating that stuff. I just don't feel good when I do, so I don't eat it very often. Like, it feels good in the moment, but you have to play that out over the next day or two and think about, how you're going to heal and the inflammatory response. And there's a lot that goes into it that we don't take into account because we don't know how it feels until you cut all that stuff out.
Yeah. So with your clients, do you advise them nutrition too then?
Like we do talk about nutrition a lot. Almost every workout, while we're stretching or warming up, I'll say, hey, what'd you eat today? Just to give them that accountability. Sure. Because everybody needs somebody to keep them in check, and if I can be that person for them, great.
So if I was like, hey, Jared, I'm thinking about becoming, one of your clients, do you meet with most of your clients like once a week and then give them a program to follow when you're not with them? Or do you meet with them, like, I'm just curious how most people
Most of my clients, I meet twice a week, and we talk about what they're going to do in between. So like say we meet Tuesday, Thursday, we lift the weights, we squat, we deadlift, we clean if that's what they're into. Most of my clients are doing a mix of interval training with some weights, CrossFit style, but not that intensity at that level. I mean, CrossFit is for everyone at a certain level, but not everyone should be doing snatches and muscle ups and kipping. Like, so most of my clients are doing some sort of 10 to 15 minute workout with squats and burpees and jump rope and running and kettlebells and dumbbells and safe, effective movements. Sure. That's a workout style, and then we're going to do a strength most days. So it's similar layout to like a CrossFit class where you do a strength and a workout, or just a workout, but it's not the clean and jerks and the snatches and the dangerous movements that are associated with CrossFit exactly. So, yeah, I use my methodology. Like I have some powerlifting background. I have some bodybuilding. So we do some of that. Some of my clients don't do any cardio because either they can't handle it or they don't like it and it stresses them out. So we just follow more of a bodybuilding regimen where we're lifting, we're doing some core, some sustained effort stuff, but not the heart beating, heavy breathing cardio.
Sure.
So it's tailored for everyone, and I feel like I have a good mix. But then most of the time we have a shared Google Doc with all of my clients separately, and they get their own program for at home. So if they're up for it and they're able to, we're going to work out 4 or 5 days a week, twice with me and then 3 times on their own. Some of them like to go to the gym and just run. So they'll have like a Planet Fitness for $10 a month, and they'll go and just run on 2 of their off days or bike so that they get that cardio.
Gotcha.
And then I'll give them home workouts. Some of them have, some dumbbells and ab mat or, even like a treadmill at home. So I can make up little circuits for them to do at their house. So it's an all-encompassing program. I mean, I do all different sorts of stuff with different people, but most people I meet twice a week. And most of them pay $300 a month. Okay. As an idea. It just kind of gives you a ballpark. But it's really amazing to see the response to people when I tell them what I do, because they're like, "Oh, you're just a personal trainer. Like, how is that?" And it's really more about the psychology and the interpersonal relationship than it is the training. I mean, like I can have them do all the squats in the world, but they're not going to get any thinner or fitter if we don't learn about life a little bit.
Yeah. Well, and I do think like in some ways you're paying for accountability too. You're paying for someone who's going to come alongside you and like encourage you, maybe enlighten you on some things, give you knowledge you don't have, but also encourage you and be like, well, why'd you eat that?
Yeah. That's the best.
You're not supposed to eat that. We don't eat that. Like, and I mean, there's been times where some of the CrossFit coaches, why did you do that? Like, we don't do that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and I think there's that, and it's not like shaming somebody. It's more like, I think it's more like encouraging the identity that they desire, but sometimes they don't have the fortitude to stick with it, And then when you have that moment, you're like, you're right. We don't do that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and then there's this like, I don't know, for me at least, there's this light switch that's like, okay, next time I'm in that place, I know how to respond. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. At least that's how I think of it and how I have interacted with like.
Yeah, saying no is tough.
Yeah.
Like learning to say no sucks.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, all the way back to my drug addiction, that was a big part of it. But I see it in everyone. Like if you don't have a drug addiction, then you're like saying no is even harder because it's not as apparent. Like my drug addiction was like apparently wrong. Like
you had to say no or you were going to die eventually.
Yeah, like it's right? In my face. Like that decision is very cut and dry. But when it comes down to like the salad or the hamburger or the chili cheese dog or the French fries and a Coke, like that no is a lot softer because it's like, I'll stop. It's not that bad for me. Like I could be worse. Yeah. That's what I hear all the time. It could have been worse. Like I could have had, crack cocaine for lunch. But that saying no to those like daily things or those foods that are going to get you in trouble is the hardest part because you want to be fit and people want to be healthy and people want to live that lifestyle. They want the results without that lifestyle, I think, is the problem.
It's hard to say no to that stuff. And sugar's so addicting. I don't think we see sugar as a drug, but it really, in a lot lot of ways, is.
Absolutely.
And it certainly, I mean, diabetes has killed a lot of people. Like, when you really think about it, it really has, like, and it really is something that, is serious to consider when you have. I remember when I was in college, I would come home and work. I worked one summer at a factory in Shelbyville. It was a glass factory, and it was 12.5-hour shifts because the lines never stopped and there were 12-hour shifts, but you had to stay. You had to get there early and stay a little late to make sure your relief came or whatever. So you go in, and all I would do all night was I would pick a piece of glass off the line, hold it up to the light, make sure there was no imperfections, put it down, and then pull a piece of paper down to cover it, and then another piece of glass would be waiting for me. 12 all summer, dude. And like people are losing their fingers in this plant. Like this is, it's kind of bordering on dangerous because there's heavy machinery around, and I'm a guitar player. So I'm like, oh man, I don't want to lose my finger. Like I can't lose my finger. Like not that I want to lose my finger anyway, but like, I'm like, there's even more incentive. And like, I remember I would go through 2 liters of Mountain Dew every night.
Easy.
Not Diet Mountain Dew, Mountain Dew.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I look back at that, I'm like, how in the world would I drink 4 liters of Mountain Dew a night for a whole summer and I didn't die? Like, and now I don't drink that. Like I'm really, the only sugar I have at this point when I'm really dialed in is fruit. Like that's the only source of my sugars. And so, but I look back at that and I'm like, it would have been like a withdrawal if you would have told me to just stop sugar altogether, because I was also eating sugar. I was eating, I would be eating high carb, like not good carbs. Like, you know what I mean? Like, lots of bread, lots of, just, probably donuts or whatever, like just for breakfast, something easy like that. You know what I mean? And I look back at it and I'm like, man, I forget how normal that was. Everybody was doing that at the factory. Like that wasn't weird. And now I look back and I'm like, that's so weird. Like how did I do that?
How is that the norm?
Yeah. And so I think part of you as a trainer and as someone to advise somebody, and I think also part of like gym culture or fitness culture is having a tribe that's saying that's not normal. Does that make sense? Like that's not normal. That's not good. Like
somebody has to say it.
Yeah, someone has to say it.
And sucks that I'm the bad guy, but like everyone's like, dude, I thought of you last night, and then I ate the hamburger or the cake anyway. I'm like, well, at least you thought of me. Right? That means a lot.
At least you saw my face right before you made that decision. Now we're gonna work on you seeing my face and making a different decision.
But you're 100% right. Like if we don't have that culture in high school, in college, like, it's not going to be the norm. It's still going to be sodas and Mountain Dews and energy drinks and cigarettes. Like, if that's the culture, that's the popular culture, that's what is going to happen. So I think there is a shift. I mean, I don't know if it's just because the people I associate with or if society is actually shifting, but like I feel like people want and understand what is healthy a lot better now.
I think science is starting to show. Well, I would say science and experience. The fact that we've had long enough with really sugary drinks and we have enough data to kind of show, oh wow, this isn't good. And we've seen people over a long period of time, like and now we're starting, I think, to ask some ethical questions about that. And then I think just diet in general and how much even things that are marketed to us as healthy aren't healthy.
Right.
Like, does that make sense? Like a lot of like things are marketed to us as this is the healthy option. And then like I look at it now from like learning macros and learning some of the other things I've learned. Like I'm like, oh my gosh.
It's a cookie. Like it's a healthy cookie though. No, it's a cookie. Like, oh no, it's a complete cookie. Look at all the stuff it doesn't have. This was an honest conversation I've had. Look at all the thing. It doesn't have dairy. It does not GMO, and it's not soy. And I was like, how much sugar's in it? Well, I don't know.
32 grams.
30 grams of sugar. It's 2 servings. Like, it's out of control. So, like, if you don't ever look, you don't ever know.
Well, and that's like those protein cookies.
That's what I'm talking about.
That's exactly what you're talking about, right? Because like I saw them at GNC, and I'm not gonna lie. When I first started CrossFit, I was all about those things because I was like, protein bars taste like crap. Bro. Well, protein bars taste like crap. I've been taught if I'm working out hard, I need to have protein. Like I've just been taught this. I'm a vegetarian, so getting protein's a little harder. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So for me, I'm like, okay, I'm going to have, these protein cookies. So every once in a while, probably 3-4 times a week, I'd have a protein cookie. But I really didn't pay a whole lot of attention to the label. For me, it was like, whatever, it's a protein cookie. I was like, oh, it's got 20 grams of protein. Sweet. Yeah. And so as I started like diving into macros, I'm like, holy crap, this thing has so much sugar in it.
Yeah.
And you start realizing, the amount of carbs I'm having here, and they're not good carbs.
Right.
They're not like sweet potatoes.
Yeah.
They're not, you know what I mean? They're not like the healthy, natural carbs, And
And yes, they're healthier than regular cookies.
Oh, sure. Well, you're also getting protein where you're not getting protein in the other cookies, and it doesn't have a bunch of crap in it. So if you're going to have a cookie, maybe that's the better cookie to have if you're going to have a cookie. But maybe you don't need to have a cookie every day after your workout. Like, you know what I mean?
So that's the conversation that I try to have with people, because it is hard. Like, what did you do when you were quitting soda? Like, what was that process like for you?
Well, I replaced that with coffee. I finally, and luckily when I came over to coffee, I initially came over to coffee with like dairy and, or with like cream and sugar. But then after a while, I was able to start drinking it black. And so now I drink coffee black, and that's kind of I definitely drink too much coffee probably. Like I would love to have, I just haven't had the discipline to do this yet. I think it'll be a goal probably in the next year or two. I say year or two just because I keep pushing it off. So maybe this is me just saying it to put it out there as something I might actually do. This is you holding me accountable. No, but I mean, like, I would love to go off caffeine completely for a month and just see how my body responds, and then almost use caffeine as a stimulant before workouts, because I know a lot of people that do it that way, and that for me, I could drink a Red Bull and go to sleep. Yeah. So like, I know for a fact that what I've done with caffeine, I would have to reprogram that, because it's not healthy.
It doesn't work.
Yeah. So I drink too much, but ultimately, I think black coffee got me to continue to have the caffeine intake without having the sugar and everything else attached to it. So it's been really healthy in that sense. And I would say it was a journey too, because before I went to coffee, I went to diet Mountain Dew. Does that make sense? Yeah. And then realizing how much diet soda, it really isn't the amount of chemicals and things that are in that, and and how much.
But that was your process.
Yeah, that was my process. Yeah. But I think that's the great thing, is like trying to encourage people toward a process of like, the way I often say it on a lot of things, like whether that's your relationship with God, your relationship with someone else, social issues, we're not the type of beings that change in leaps and bounds. Typically, it takes a really adverse experience for us to change quickly. Like it takes a lot of pressure, would be the way of saying it, to change quickly. There has to be other factors. And so what I say is like, where's my dial at? Like 1 to 100, maybe think of it that way. Like 100 is the ideal of where I'm trying to get to. But I got to be real with myself. Right now, I'm only at a 20. So like, what does 21 look like? Yeah. Does that make sense? Because a lot of people are like, I just want to get to 100. I want to have 6-pack abs. Well, yeah. Maybe you want that, but like, you got to think about what 21 looks like, because it's going to be 21, then it's going to be 22, and that might take you 3 months to get to 22. Like, you see what I'm saying?
So for me, like I think about it like, how can I inspire other people to want to make that change, like without going to prison just or without getting arrested or without like, how do you inspire people to drive themselves without causing them hardship, without them having a mental breakdown, without them contemplating life-altering decisions? Like, how do you bring that to their attention? Like, that's my kind of mission.
It's hard, man.
Right? Like, you have to inspire them to want to change and show them that there is a way to change. But I think it goes along with kind of what we were talking about making those small changes, making yourself accountable to be able to change. So still working through some of the logistics of it, but I have to be able to inspire people to want to change themselves. Like, I can't tell them how to do it. I can't tell them why to do it. I can't give them a why. But once they figure out that they can, then they're not going to need me anymore. So my ultimate goal is to have people self-sustaining, driving themselves to be an amazing person.
Yeah. No, that's good. And I think change is so, what you said is really good, because a lot of people change for the wrong reasons, and they might have short-term success for it, right? Like, oh, I want to change because I want to, or I want to do it this way because my why is going to be the why that someone told me. Does that make sense? But like, when you discover the why for yourself, and when you journey through that, that tends to be something that can stick. And like, in your experience, that, like, because you when you were talking about like being a year in, when you were like, I think I know what my why for myself is. I feel like that's what I think I finally found it. And like, no one could have handed this to me. I had to go through this. Like, I had to journey this, like, to get here. Like, no one could have just came and just dropped that in my lap. I had to go through some introspection to get to that place, right?
Yeah.
And now I know my why. And I think sometimes when you've been through that, you know how to hold someone's hand and say, I can't tell you your why, but I can get you close to it, and maybe you can figure it out. Like, you know, and that's a cool journey that you get to walk with people.
Yeah.
Because I do that from a spiritual side,
Right.
and you're doing it from more of a fitness side. And like self-discovery, I think, is really important. And we just don't put enough priority on it as a culture, I feel like. I wish we would put more priority on it.
Yeah, I've had success helping people with figuring out a process that works for them. So my process isn't going to work for everyone, like the self-reflection at night or this idea that I can hold myself accountable for little actions and then become more accountable for big actions. But that sort of process where I think I can change has helped people. Like, so I'll ask them, like, what could you do to help yourself be more accountable, and just actually walk them through the process that I walked myself through is where I kind of see that working for people. So developing a routine of whatever it is. Like, I wasn't a journaler, but some people find comfort in journaling, and that habit helps them to be more accountable.
Yeah.
So that they can start to have those small wins. Like, I don't want to go to the gym today, but I will anyway to hold myself accountable. I don't want to eat salad and chicken today, but I will to hold myself accountable.
Yeah.
And then once we start building that accountability with ourselves, then we can start to do amazing things, because we know it's going to be challenging. We know it's going to be the hardest thing we've ever done, to be in an uncomfortable situation we've never been before. But we can start to process that and be fearless and be unafraid that we might fail, but we might achieve something great. And that's the battle that I've been fighting recently, is trying to, you know, take it to the next level and not be complacent with, oh yeah, I'm helping people and you know, I'm doing okay, and help thousands of people.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the ultimate goal, is to change the world.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, starting with this community, starting with the people that I impact daily, but ultimately to change the world. Like, how big can this thing be? How many people can I impact? That's the question.
That's awesome.
So, like, small steps, turning people's mind from negativity to positivity is a huge one. So, like, just being encouraging and pulling out the small victories, because kind of what we were talking about earlier, how are you happy with where you're at but strive for more? People struggle with that on a small level. I mean, that's a daily battle. Like,
yeah.
But I'm still overweight. Yeah, but you've been eating salad every day. You're starting to develop a habit. Yeah, but I'm not getting stronger. I'm like, but your squat is so much better. Like, you know how to squat. You know how to run now. Like, that type of stuff we miss. In the process, we miss all of that development.
If you're alone and you don't have someone who's further on the journey than you, they're not going to be able to encourage you in the things you're not going to see right away.
Yeah.
If you're only looking for six-pack abs, does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
You're not going to be like, I've lost 5 pounds, and be like, that's good. Like, I'm moving in the right direction. You might be like, I don't have a six-pack yet. I'm done. Like, you know, I mean, and I'm obviously simplifying that, but I do think things like squat form. Hey, look, I know we're not putting a ton of weight on the bar yet, but you're doing awesome. This is great form. If you didn't have someone there to tell you that, and I've been in CrossFit long enough now, over 2 years, that I've seen people come in a certain way and experience the push of CrossFit and the fear that is, because it is fear. When you come in, you're afraid. Like, this is hard. This is going to be hard work. Like, no one who's never done CrossFit listening to this, who's thinking about going to their first CrossFit class, doesn't have a little bit of anxiety. Like, you're going to have that. But, like, the coaching at Gamma, I think, is superb. Like, and what I mean by that is, like, not only is the technique really good, all of that, like, we teach it well, but then the coaches are encouraging too. Like, they're coming alongside, like, hey, you're doing it great. Here's another cue, like giving you the next dial, the next number on the dial, you know, make sure you push your knees out or whatever, or do, you know, whatever the cue is, but then also celebrating what they're doing right and letting them feel like, okay, I'm progressing. Like, I feel like I'm making, and that is really important for somebody to stick with it, because the first month in CrossFit for me was like, I don't know if I'm going to stick with this because this is hard,
I'm sure.
man. This is hard stuff. And I mean, I came into CrossFit at 280 pounds.
You came in a complete opposite end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
Which is real cool. Like that journey is even harder. Like mine was easy. Like I had already fought all of that, like self, doubt. And like, I knew that I was strong, and I knew at that point I was 3 years in, and I could, I could run 10 miles, and I could squat X, and I could deadlift Y, and you had no idea. No idea. You're like, I don't know what I can do, but I'm going to do it.
I mean, I know I can. Like, I know I could probably bench a little bit because I've been to Globo Gym. I know I could do some of those things, but when it came to like, let's do burpees and let's do pull-ups and I'm like, dude, I'm never going to be able to do a pull-up. Like that feeling of like, oh man, I'm watching this guy do butterfly pull-ups and do 20, peel off 20 at a time. I can't even get my chin over the bar once. Yeah. Like, so I'm over here doing ring rows and these are hard. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you sit there and like in that moment, you're just like, oh, I'm never going to get there. And that's where comparison can be really unhelpful. Yeah. Because like you can sometimes compare yourself to something else and miss all of the good things you're doing. And like for me, it's like I had to keep reminding myself, I woke up this morning. Right. I showed up. Like that every time I'd leave, I'd be like, I showed up this morning. Like that would be goal, that was I showed up, I broke a sweat. And I'm leaving, and I'm just hoping this is going to get better down the road. Like I just kept, and I mean, I had a relationship with Ryan before I came in, who was a coach, and so like he was super encouraging because I think he knew right away this is going to be a long road, Justin. So like I think he was preparing me in some ways for that, and also encouraging me along the way. But like it's hard to be around that, and it does help you not to compare yourself in unhealthy ways, because I think there's healthy ways of comparing yourself something like a competition. That's a way of testing yourself to the others, but like there's unhealthy ways of comparing yourself where you can totally miss.
You compare yourself out.
Yeah.
To the point it's like I don't have that. I'm different. This isn't for me. Yeah. Yeah. And that's the beautiful thing about CrossFit is like it can be for everyone. It's just you have to be careful. Like you have to ask the questions. You have to have the humility. I'm not going to do pull-ups for 8 months. Yeah. And that's fine. I mean, that's 100% fine. Yeah. Like my mom just came back again, and she's trying to fight the same, like, but I want to do snatches. And I'm like, Mom, like, you don't need to do snatches. She's like, I know, but I want to. I'm like, that's awesome. Like, but you have to like kind of like fight that battle until you're ready. Like, and there were things that you didn't do for months and months. And like,
there's things I didn't do for the first year. I mean, I just got my muscle up not long ago. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and I didn't even work on a muscle up I mean, I just kept saying, I just need to build my strict strength. I just need to, like, and just trying to say, it'll come when it comes. Like even right now, last open, I was trying to get a ring muscle up. Open. And then I like jacked my shoulder up, and I was just like, because I was drilling it so much trying to get it for the one workout that they had that had the ring muscle ups. And I was just like, you know what? I just need to keep getting stronger and keep getting fitter and keep dropping weight because this and I might be able to jump on the rings right now and do a ring muscle up. I just haven't tried
because I'm like capability.
Because I'm like I don't want to try right now. I just want to keep getting stronger because it's not important to me. Like it's important to get it. I want to get it. Like, does that make sense? But like I also am kind of like that. Getting that isn't like at the time I put a lot on that, and I'm like, okay, I don't need to put that much on that. Like I'm getting fitter in all these other areas, which is it's gonna make that easier, which is kind of how I handled my bar muscle up. Does that make sense? So it's like, if I could just handle the ring muscle up the same way I handled the bar muscle up, just keep doing some of these drills every week, get a little stronger.
There's a lot of other areas that are going to give you a lot more benefit too.
Exactly.
Like there's a severe like risk there, but your benefit from other areas are going to be so huge. And goes back to like the nutrition and the sleep. Like you got to start with a strong base. I go through the same thing like in business though, like comparing myself against other people. Like, I know that I can train and I know that I have a good knowledge base, but as far as like running the business and growing the business and writing the book, like I'm completely out of my element there. I'm just doing it. Like I'm just like asking questions, like trying to learn, trying to push myself a little bit more every day. But I've been stressing about taxes for like 2 months, and they're not even due for another 2 months. Like, but I just am that far out of my element that I have to stress about it because it's serious.
Yeah,
like,
and that's
I gotta
new.
Figure it out. It's new. Yeah. It's scary. Like, what am I gonna do?
Being a business owner and doing taxes, that's a whole different. You're becoming a libertarian real quick. You're like.
So it's the same like stress. Like you got to seek out a mentor. You got to seek out someone that knows how to do it. You got to ask. You got to ask friends. So I like ask my clients like, do you know a good tax accountant?
CPA?
And like they're like, yeah, I think. And then you get a referral, and then you go and just pursue that path and learn a little bit. And maybe next year I can do my own. Like when I figure out how like the business flows through to the individual, and then I can just do all those taxes too. But it's the same scary experience. Like I want to run and hide. Like I don't want to do that. Like showing my unfinished book to someone is like scary because I write like crap. Like, but I have ideas that I need to get down so that I can progress. So like figuring that out, like I have no idea how to write a book. Like I just am doing it. Like I'm just figuring it out. I'm going to ask some people, seek out some mentors, and then learn a little bit. And it's going to be a process. Yeah,
dude. Because I think what I look back at, 2+ years ago, coming to CrossFit for the first time, and that like fear and that anxiety. I think ever since seeing what CrossFit has done for me in that, and not that CrossFit is the only place I've ever had fear and anxiety and then grown from it, but I have seen so much growth from it, and I've also gained a community from it. And so there's been like lifelong like connection there, right? But like when I think about some of the other things that maybe I'm apprehensive to go into anymore, like when I'm like, oh, this is going to be, I'm going to be really out of my element, or, I'm a unique pastor. I have tattoos and earrings. And so sometimes I might find myself in a more like suit and tie type culture. Like I can be like, I don't know if I'm going to feel really awkward. Like now I enter into this place is a little more like I'm ready to learn something. I'm ready to grow. Like it's going to stretch me. This is going to hurt. I'm going to have to like swallow my pride a little bit and ask for help. I'm going to have to like, I'm going to have to go in as a beginner. Like I think we really struggle at times, especially once you kind of get into adulthood and get somewhat established, as admitting that I'm beginner status right now. I don't know what I'm doing. And like, I need someone to teach me. And I actually think what happens is the more we enter into things with that, like I'm a beginner and this is going to be painful and it's going to be hard and I'm going to have to work like at it. The more we get that growth mindset, like just drilled into us as the habit of like, I don't know it all. I got to grow. I'm growing in every area of my life, and it's okay to be here. It's okay to be a beginner. Like, you know what I mean?
And even though you know that, it's still scary.
Oh, it's still scary.
Uncomfortable.
Yeah,
like,
it's still hard.
You can rationalize it all you want. Like, okay, I don't know anything. I don't know how to do it. I'm going to learn eventually, but I have to go ask. Like, how is it still scary? Like, why do we still have that, like, uncomfortable feeling of like, I'm a loser, like teach me like, can you please like show me how to do this and not charge me a lot? Like I don't have anything to give you, but please show me your ways.
No, I hear it. I hear it, man. I think we need to do hard things. I think hard things are good. Like I think being afraid at times is good though. Like being in those scenarios. I just think the growth that happens from that place as opposed to like a place of like comfortable growth, like it tends to be that we grow more when we enter in with a little bit of fear, a little bit of anxiety, like
because that means it is a challenge and it's worth overcoming.
Yeah, that's good, man. Dude, it's been great talking to you.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for opening up and sharing your story. And I know a lot of it, you were very vulnerable, and so I'm super thankful for.
Yeah, I'm kind of scatterbrained, but thanks for having me on here.
No, dude. Do you want to leave anybody with anything or any links or ways they can contact you or a final word, whatever you want to share?
Yeah, I mean, I'm on Facebook. I put up inspirational videos, once a week, or I was trying to do it more often, but it tends to be once a week. So you can find me on Facebook, Jared Meyers. I'm on Instagram at Wadding It and Workout Penguin. That's my work, just straight workouts on there. And then our company is New Life Hershey, and that's on the social too, but on the web at newlifehersheyllc.com. So any of those ways is a good way to get a hold of us.
Cool. And I'll put all those links in the podcast notes if you need them.
Or just come to Gamma and check it out and say hi. That's the best way, honestly.
Come to CrossFit Gamma if you're in Central PA.
There. Yeah.
You are usually there. All right, thanks, Jared.
Yeah, thank you.
Boom, another episode in the books. I hope that was encouraging and inspiring and challenging for you. It was great to have you with me today on Beyond Boundaries. If you want to learn more about me or find out more about Jared, you can go to the show notes at pastorjustindouglas.com. You can interact there with feedback, comments, and questions, or you can reach out via Instagram. I'm at Pastor Justin Douglas. And again, please consider subscribing, rating, reviewing, and sharing the podcast, this episode, other episodes. It all makes a difference. So I'd be really thankful if you did that on your social media. And as I always sign off, I'll continue to sign off. May you go and live a life that is beyond boundaries, giving others love, exploring new ideas, and championing belonging.